Chapter 3058, Memory Erasure, Mirage Water, Evil Master, what do you think? The muscular man asked. This is the White Bone region, and the Blood Crow organization is one of the overlords here. The three of us have destroyed one of their strongholds, and this is no longer just a provocation to the Blood Crow organization, but a slap in the face. Once the Blood Crow organization finds out about this, they will immediately send their experts to kill the three of us. It is because of this that we specially sealed off this region with a restriction to prevent the news from leaking out. But these people saw what happened just now. Once they spread the news, it will be very difficult for the three of us to leave the Bone region safely. So, I suggest that we kill all of them, the young evil master said directly. The evil master did not deliberately suppress his voice, and his words were clearly heard by Jian Wushuang and the others. Immediately, the false saints in Jian Wushuang's team turned pale with fright and became nervous. Gentlemen, we are indeed just passing by, and we promise that we will not spread the news of today's event. We hope that you can show mercy, Jiu Luo said. Jiu Luo was usually careless, but he was very sensible. When it was time to lower his head, he knew to lower it. Guarantee? What's the use of just empty words? The evil master laughed mockingly. Enough. The burly man waved his hand and then turned to look at the silent Mirage Water. Mirage Water, with your research on the soul, you should be able to directly access part of the other party's memories, right? If they don't resist, it's fine, Mirage Water said. That's good. The burly man said in a deep voice, it is true that the three of you do not have any enmity with us. However, you have seen something that you should not have seen today. For the sake of safety, the three of us should have killed all of you. However, I can give all of you a chance now. All of you should give up resisting. I will get Mirage Water to erase the portion of your memories that you have just seen. After that, all of you can leave. Erase their memories? Jiu Luo and the rest were shocked, but they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Mountain King, you are really merciful. The evil master glanced at the burly man and did not say anything. Mirage Water, go ahead. The burly man Mountain King said. Mirage Water nodded and prepared to go forward. Sorry, I refuse. An indifferent voice suddenly sounded. In an instant, everyone looked at the source of the voice. The one who said this was Jian Wushuang, who had been standing silently by the side. What did you just say? Mountain King stared at Jian Wushuang with an invisible pressure. Facing this pressure, Jian Wushuang was calm and natural. I used to know soul attacks, so I know some things about the soul. Under normal circumstances, an expert who is good at soul attacks wants to erase a person's memory, which is equivalent to reading all the memories of that person. I don't want others to see some things, so I refuse. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Mountain King's expression turned cold. Brother Heavenly Marquis, Jiu Luo said anxiously, it's true that erasing your memory means that you will search through your own memory. It's normal that you don't want others to know about your secrets, but you have to save your life first. Nothing is more important than your own life. That's right. Lord Heavenly Marquis, don't be rash. The false saints at the back also spoke. Jian Wushuang smiled. My life is important, but there are things more important than my own life in this world. If I don't resist and let them erase my memory, not only will all my secrets be spied on, but my life will also be in their hands. I don't like the feeling that my life and death are in their hands. Besides, these three are not qualified to make me wait for my death. Jiu Luo and the others were shocked. Jian Wushuang's words clearly offended the three geniuses. Sure enough, except for Mirage Water, the other two geniuses' expressions changed. Mountain King, you are indeed merciful today, but unfortunately, some people still don't appreciate your kindness, the demonic young evil master said with a strange smile. Well, Mountain King nodded slightly. In that case, let's kill him, Mirage Water. As soon as Mountain King finished his words, Mirage Water, the white-robed woman, looked directly at Jian Wushuang with her clear eyes. A strange light flashed in her eyes. A powerful soul power instantly covered Jian Wushuang. Brothers of the Heavenly Marquis. Jiu Luo was shocked. When the three of them were fighting with the experts of the Blood Crow organization, the white-robed woman was extremely terrifying. At first glance, those rank 1 and 2 true saints had died instantly. Her terrifying methods were amazing. Now, the white-robed woman looked at Jian Wushuang and used the same method. However, Jian Wushuang still stood there calmly in the face of the white-robed woman's soul attack. His expression did not even change. Mirage water, what happened? Mountain King looked at him in surprise. I have already used my soul attack, but this person, he blocked it forcefully and easily, Mirage water said. Oh! Mountain King was surprised. Soul attack is good, but it's useless to me. Jian Wushuang was telling the truth. Since he had become an immortal saint, his soul had greatly increased. Although his soul strength was still at the rank 1 true saint, it was much stronger than that of a true saint of the same level. In addition, he also had the pagoda of delicacy. After becoming an immortal saint, his pagoda of delicacy had reached the 3rd level, which was extremely powerful. The white-robed woman's soul attack had been used on the pagoda of delicacy, but it could not shake it at all. Since the pagoda of delicacy could not be shaken, it naturally could not affect Jian Wushuang at all. It's good that you can resist the soul attack of fantasy water so easily, but it's a pity that you met us, the evil master. Kill him, Mountain King said. Leave it to me. The evil master revealed an excited smile, and his figure flashed in an instant. His terrifying speed burst out, and a ghostly figure appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. A random purple light lit up. It was the cold purple spear. The spear was unbelievably fast. It pierced through the void and made a crisp sound of air explosion. It's too fast. Jiu Luo and the other false saints widened their eyes. Jian Wushuang was still standing in the same place. He did not move at all, as if he had given up resisting. Chapter 3059. 1 against 3. He's dead. Seeing that the tip of the evil master's purple spear was less than a meter away from Jian Wushuang and that Jian Wushuang had no reaction at all, Mountain King and Mirage Water sighed in their hearts. Even a rank 3 true saint could not dodge the evil master's spear at such a close distance. They did not think that Jian Wushuang could dodge it at all. The long spear tore through the air and directly pierced through Jian Wushuang's throat. No! Mountain King's pupils suddenly shrank. An afterimage? The young evil master was also suddenly shocked. His long spear had clearly pierced through Jian Wushuang's throat, but he did not feel any material existence from the tip of the spear. Obviously, the Jian Wushuang in front of him was only an afterimage. Your speed is just SOSO. A cold voice suddenly came from the void next to the evil master. Jian Wushuang's figure appeared out of nowhere, and a blood-red long sword appeared in his hand. He had already raised the long sword. Oh no! The evil master's expression changed greatly. Humph! Mountain King snorted coldly and took a step forward. He also burst out with terrifying speed and stood in front of the evil master. Before Jian Wushuang's sword fell, Mountain King had already waved his right arm. Carrying the earth-shaking divine power, he ferociously attacked Jian Wushuang like a meteorite. In the previous battle, Mountain King had punched a rank 3 true saint so hard that he vomited blood. However, seeing this punch, Jian Wushuang just smiled casually, and the star power in his body suddenly burst out. However, the long sword in his hand did not stop at all. The sword was slashed out in anger. A deep and angry roar suddenly came from the heaven and earth, and the sword light from the long sword turned into a complete and huge ancient exotic beast. This ancient exotic beast was extremely ferocious, and its evil energy soared to the sky. It rushed out with a shocking power. It was the peerless sword technique Shixiang. Bang! The Blood Mountain sword directly hacked at Mountain King's fist, and the terrifying power contained in the sword suddenly burst out. Crack! The sound of bones breaking suddenly rang out. Mountain King's eyes were wide open as he stared at Jian Wushuang in shock. In the next moment, his body was directly chopped down. What? Seeing this scene, Mirage Water and the evil master also looked incredulous. Among the 3 of them, Mountain King was the best at killing power. Mountain King's fist was extremely powerful, and few rank 3 true saints could match him. But now, he was facing a mysterious expert who was also a rank 1 true saint. How could he break Mountain King's bones with a single strike? How could he fall to the ground? Star Sea Realm. The white-robed woman, Mirage Water, suddenly let out a low shout. Her eyes were shining with a strong green light. The green light was like a demonic light, shooting toward Jian Wushuang and making eye contact with him. Buzz buzz buzz. The world around Jian Wushuang immediately began to change. He was originally in a vast void, but in the blink of an eye he had arrived in a pitch-black boundless sea of stars. Jiu Luo and the others around him had also disappeared. Illusion. A mere illusion can't affect me. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently, and then his eyes turned cold. Break! Boom! The shout was like a heavenly punishment, and the starry sea world shook violently and then collapsed. It's broken. How could it break my most powerful move so easily? Mirage Water was shocked. I don't believe it. Jian Wushuang looked to the side and saw that the young evil master's aura suddenly increased, and his speed increased by another level. The purple spear in his hand also became more demonic. Bush, 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 bush. The purple spear was like a purple lightning snake, stabbing toward Jian Wushuang at an extremely tricky angle. It was so fast that an ordinary rank 3 true saint could only defend in a sorry state. They could not even defend for long. In the previous battle, it was this evil master who had used his extremely fast spear technique to kill a rank 3 true saint first. But now, he met Jian Wushuang. Is it a competition of speed? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, but the Blood Mountain sword in his hand became illusory. He still stood in the void, but without any warning, he brandished the long sword in his hand. Hua, 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 hua. Jian Wushuang brandished the sword 9 times in a row, and also displayed a total of 9 sword moves. However, even though he had executed 9 sword moves in one go, it felt as if he had only executed 1 sword move. It was the 9th heaven of illusionary sword in the Peerless Sword Manual. The 9 sword shadows were all extremely hazy. When they overlapped and gathered together, the moment they were brandished, the evil master's body trembled violently. This sword move, the evil master stared at the 9 sword lights that overlapped and seemed to be executed at the same time. It was too fast. These 9 sword lights were simply too fast. It was even faster than the spear technique that he had unleashed with all his might, and much faster. Boom! In his shock, the evil master also unleashed his full power, using the fastest speed that he had ever used in his life to execute his spear technique, but in the end, clang, 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 clang. The evil master only had time to block 6 strikes, but the 7th strike had brushed past the body of his long spear, slashing directly onto his divine body. He was similarly unable to block the 8th and 9th strikes. The evil master's entire head was cut off, and his divine body directly collapsed. Crash! A large amount of divine power began to gather crazily, and in just a moment, the evil master's divine body reassembled again. However, after the divine body reassembled, the evil master looked at Jian Wushuang with a trace of fear and did not attack again. Bush, bush. Mountain King and Mirage Water also appeared behind the evil master, looking at Jian Wushuang with a trace of fear in their eyes. At this time, Jian Wushuang slowly reached out his hand, and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. As Jian Wushuang opened the jade bottle, a foul smell spread out. There was some dark brown liquid in the jade bottle. Jian Wushuang sprinkled the dark brown liquid on the Blood Mountain sword, and it was quickly absorbed by the Blood Mountain sword. This scene made Mountain King, the evil master, and Mirage Water tremble in fear. It's the poison of the evil god. In the treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, only 2 million sacred elixirs can be exchanged for 1 drop. Although it's not as good as the poison of the Devil Star, 1 drop is enough to kill an ordinary rank 3 true saint. As the evil master said this, his body and mind went cold. After all, his divine body had just been destroyed by Jian Wushuang. However, If Jian Wushuang had just smeared the evil god venom on his long sword, he would have died instantly, as a rank 1 true saint with his divine power could not resist the corrosion of the evil god venom. Chapter 3060. Monsters Among Monsters. Under silence. The whole world was silent. Mountain King, Mirage Water, and the evil master stood side by side, staring at Jian Wushuang with their eyes wide open. They saw Jian Wushuang merge the evil god venom into his long sword. They knew that Jian Wushuang had the strength to kill them. Jiu Luo and the false saints were also stunned. "Sir, we are from the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces," Mountain King said immediately. "The heaven-cleaving 3 palaces again?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Since he came from the Endless Territory, he had met several geniuses from the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Jian Wushuang had long known that the 3 people in front of him must be from a powerful force with an extraordinary background. He did not expect them to be from the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. The heaven-cleaving 3 palaces are divided into the Heaven and Earth Palace, the Primitive Palace, and the Chaos Palace. "Which palace are you from?" Jian Wushuang asked. "The Primitive Palace." "The 3 of us are from the Primitive Palace," Mountain King said directly. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and was not surprised. These 3 people were obviously much stronger than Shui Yu, Long Yun, and Chen Chen, whom he had met before. However, they were not ridiculously strong. They should not be the super geniuses of the Chaos Palace. The geniuses of the Primitive Palace suited their identities. "I've long heard that there are many monsters in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. The geniuses of the Primitive Palace are the best among the monsters. I've witnessed it today." Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, but he had already put away the Blood Mountain sword. "You 3 didn't kill us directly just now, so I'll let you live." After saying that, Jian Wushuang looked at Jiu Luo and said, "Jiu Luo, let's go." Jian Wushuang turned around and left. Jiu Luo and the other false saints had also recovered from their shock. They looked at the 3 of them in amazement and then left with Jian Wushuang. The 3 of them stood in the same place without any intention of stopping him. As for wiping out part of their memories, it was naturally impossible. Soon, Jian Wushuang and the others had disappeared from Mountain King and the other 2. Mountain King and the other 2 were still standing there. They looked very excited and could not calm down for a long time. After a while, the evil master was the first to speak. "Mirage Water, you are good at the soul and have the best sensing ability. Did the man just now disguise his divine power aura, or is he really a rank 1 true saint?" Mountain King immediately looked at Mirage Water. But Mirage Water shook her head slightly. "I didn't sense any signs of him hiding his aura. At least from what I see, he is indeed just a 1st-level true saint." "If even you can't tell, then this person is most likely a 1st-level true saint. But they are both 1st-level true saints. How can he be so strong?" The evil master said in shock. Mountain King and Mirage Water were also shocked. "Is too strong? The 3 of us are all from the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, and we're all top geniuses of the Primitive Palace. Even in the vast divine beginning realm, our talent is definitely the best, and the most terrifying. Even if we encounter the monsters of the Chaos Palace. In this era, there are only 2 monsters of the Chaos Palace who are still at the 1st-level true saint. I've fought with one of them before. Although that person's strength is terrifying and is much stronger than mine, I feel that if we work together with the evil master, we should be able to fight. If we add Mirage Water, the 3 of us working together can even completely suppress that genius of the Chaos Palace." But today, the 3 of us met a cultivator who was also only at the 1st-level true saint realm. The 3 of us combined our full strength, and in the end, we were completely defeated? Mountain King muttered. Mirage Water's expression was solemn. His soul is extremely tough, and his soul defense ability is also extremely strong. The soul attack that I used with all my strength did not have the slightest effect on him. Even when I used my strongest ultimate move, the Starry Sea Realm, he was able to break it in an instant. His willpower is terrifyingly strong. His strength is also ridiculously strong. When he fought you head-on, he smashed you to the ground with one sword strike. His speed is even faster than before. As expected, his comprehension of the space-time principles has reached the third stage, and his sword arts are even more tyrannical. In just one exchange, that sword arts completely crushed the evil master, and even crushed the evil master's divine body on the spot. His speed, strength, and soul are all incredible, and I don't feel any weakness in his body. I even felt that he was holding back when he fought with us. In other words, he didn't use his full strength. This man is too terrifying. Terrifying. That was what Mirage Water thought of Jian Wushuang. Mountain King and the evil master thought the same. If a genius of the Chaos Palace is a monster in the divine beginning world, then that man should be a monster among monsters. Even the monsters in the Chaos Palace are inferior to him, Mountain King said. From the direction he's flying and the team he's with, he should have rushed over from the endless territories. He's currently forming a team to pass through the White Bone region. Such an inconceivable monster actually appeared in the endless territories? Who exactly is he? The evil master was curious. No matter who he is, since we've met him today, then we can't pretend that we didn't see him. We must immediately report this matter to the higher-ups, said Mountain King. Yes, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has a rule. It's a great reward to introduce some top geniuses to the three palaces. As for the man just now, he's an incredible monster. Once he joins the three palaces, the three of us will get a lot of benefits. By the way, we forgot to ask his name, said the evil master. Although they had just fought with Jian Wushuang, they had not asked his name. I heard the true saint in their team call him Brother Heavenly Marquis. He should be called Heavenly Marquis, right? Mirage Water asked. I think so. Mountain King nodded. It's impossible for a monster like him to be completely traceless. As long as we report his name, it should be easy for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to find out his background. Let's leave this place quickly. Soon, the three geniuses left. The three of them had come to the Bone region to carry out a special mission of the Primitive Palace. It had nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. It was because Jian Wushuang happened to see them when they attacked the stronghold of the Blood Crow organization. In order not to leak the news, they fought with Jian Wushuang. However, they did not expect that such a freak would appear in this fight. After the three of them left, they immediately reported what happened here to the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces. Chapter 3061. How could it be possible? When Mountain King and the other two reported the news, the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces also attached great importance to it. As Mountain King had expected, with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's ability, it was too easy to find out Jian Wushuang's background. In the vast chaotic void, a three-eyed man over 3 meters tall with bronze skin, a green-haired woman, and the last white-haired old man were gathered together. These three ancient and powerful existences were gathered together. The three of them sat in front of the stone table and drank by themselves. Occasionally, they would chat with each other, appearing extremely calm. These days are getting more and more boring. The white-haired old man let out a soft sigh. The three of them had lived for an incomparably long time. However, because they had lived for too long and their strength had already reached their limits, it was almost impossible for them to have any room for improvement. After such a long period of time, it was inevitable that they would become bored and lose their fun. To be more precise, they would lose their motivation. These dull and boring days were actually very difficult to endure. Some people with a high mental state were fine, but if it was someone with a low mental state, the boredom of such a long period of time would easily cause them to go crazy and become a demon. Some even started to distort and become very dark. As for the three of them, even though their days were a little more dull, at least they were able to stay true to their hearts. That was not bad. Emo-shan, if you feel really bored, why don't you go to the universe battlefield and explore? There are countless opportunities there. Who knows, you might be able to find some opportunities there, allowing your strength to improve? The green-haired lady said. Universe battlefield? The weathered old man Emo-shan raised his eyebrows, then sneered, Don't dream about it. What kind of place is the universe battlefield? Although there are countless opportunities there are even more dangers. For principles masters at our level, if we go there, I'm afraid we won't even know how we die. Is the universe battlefield really that dangerous? The green-haired woman frowned slightly. If you are not strong enough by yourself, then if the three of us join hands, can we go there and have a try? The three-eyed man beside him immediately looked over. No. Emo-shan shook his head. The dangers of the universe battlefield aren't something we can imagine. I once heard the palace master and the others say that in there, normal principles masters are just cannon fodder. Like the three of us, we are just slightly stronger than cannon fodder. Unless the three of us can improve further, then with the three of us working together, we can go and try. Of course, if the two of you really feel that you've lived too long, then there's no point. You can try your luck inside. If your luck is good, you might really get a great opportunity. But even if your luck is bad and you die inside, that would be considered a relief. You can still achieve your goal. After all, I'm not going to the space battlefield. Even though my life is very boring, it's still better than dying. Hearing Emo-shan's words, the three-eyed man and the green-haired woman could not help but laugh. However, deep down, they were looking forward to the universe battlefield even more. Of course, even though they were looking forward to it, they were more in awe. The universe battlefield was the graveyard of principles masters. These words were not a joke. Of the principles masters from the divine beginning world who entered the universe battlefield, at least 5 out of 10 would fall. Right at this moment, the three of you are all here. A hoarse voice sounded. Immediately, a silver-haired old woman with a shaggy figure appeared beside the three of them. Bitter Granny, why are you free to come here today? The three-eyed man revealed a smile. He waved his hand and a wine cup immediately appeared on the table. Come, sit down and have a drink. I don't have time to drink with you. I came here today to look for Emo-shan, the silver-haired old woman said. Look for me? Emo-shan raised his head. It's like this, the silver-haired old woman immediately began to explain. Not long ago, I heard that an incredible sword Dao genius appeared in the Endless Territories. He has great potential and is qualified to become a member of our heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Unfortunately, this genius did not agree to join our heaven-cleaving 3 palaces in the end. There is such a thing. Emo-shan nodded. This genius is called Heavenly Sword Marquis. Back then, he was only at the Reverend God level, but he already had the battle strength of a 2nd-level true saint. His talent is so high that in this era of many geniuses in the Chaos Palace, there is probably no one who can compare to him. Back then, I personally went to invite him, but he rejected me in person. After that, I paid a lot of attention to him. I know that he is now a heaven-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and his strength is extraordinary. Yes, it's the Heavenly Sword Marquis. The silver-haired old woman's expression was unusually grave. Just now, the 3 genius, the Mountain King, Mirage Water, and Evil Master from the Primitive Palace went to the White Bone region in order to complete the mission issued by the Primitive Palace. In the White Bone region, they saw the Heavenly Sword Marquis and even exchanged blows with him. Mountain King, Mirage Water, and Evil Master? Emo-shan, the green-haired woman, and the three-eyed man looked at each other. They were all high-level officials of the 3 palaces, so they were very familiar with some of the geniuses in the 3 palaces. The 3 geniuses that the silver-haired old woman was talking about were the 3 more talented ones in the Primitive Palace. These 3 little guys should be at the 1st-level True Saint realm, and the Heavenly Sword Marquis seems to have broken through to the True Saint realm. He is on the same level as the 3 of them. How did they end up fighting? Emo-shan asked. Those 3 little fellows were defeated, the silver-haired old woman said. Defeated? Emo-shan nodded slightly, but he was not surprised. That Heavenly Sword Marquis is comparable to a 2nd-level True Saint at the Divine Master realm. Now that he has broken through to the True Saint realm, his combat strength is likely infinitely close to that of a 4th-level True Saint. It is normal that these 3 little fellows are no match for him. But the 3 of them joined forces and instantly unleashed their strongest strength. In the end, they were easily crushed and defeated by that Heavenly Sword Marquis, the silver-haired old woman said in a low voice. What? Emo-shan was shocked. The green-haired woman and the 3-eyed man were also shocked. When they heard the silver-haired old woman say that Mountain King and the other two had lost, they thought that Mountain King and the other two had fought one-on-one with Heavenly Sword Marquis and were defeated by him. But in the end, the three of them actually joined forces and were defeated, and they had been defeated? How is this possible? The three-eyed man immediately stood up. I know about Mountain King, Mirage Water, and Evil Master. The three of them are very powerful. Although they are only first-level true saints, their combat power is at the peak among third-level true saints. Any one of them has the strength to kill an ordinary third-level true saint in a one-on-one fight. Moreover, one of them is strong, one is good at soul techniques, and the other is good at speed. With the cooperation of the three of them, even if they meet a true fourth-level true saint, they can still fight. How can they not be a match for Heavenly Sword Marquis? Chapter 3062, Making an Exception The three-eyed man, the green-haired woman, and Emotion all felt incredulous. Although it's a little unbelievable, it's the truth. The silver-haired old woman said seriously, the Mountain King personally sent a message. According to the Mountain King, the Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't defeat the three of them after a tough battle. Instead, he crushed the three of them easily. The three of them even felt that the Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't use his full strength. You can easily crush Mountain King and the other two, but you haven't even used your full strength yet? The three-eyed man was shocked. Hag, is that why you came to find me? Emotion looked at the silver-haired old woman. Yes. The silver-haired old woman nodded slightly. If what Mountain King and the other two said is true, then this kid called Heavenly Sword Marquis is a little too terrifying. Such a genius is worthy of the attention of our heaven-cleaving alliance. Now, the three palace masters already know about this matter. And Emotion, you've dealt with that kid before? If nothing unexpected happens, the three palace masters should be looking for you. Three palace masters? Emotion was stunned. The heaven-cleaving alliance was publicly acknowledged as the #1 freedom alliance in the divine beginning realm. It had countless experts. For example, the principal's masters who were usually high and mighty could be considered the strongest experts in any place in the divine beginning realm, even in the vast third firmament. However, there were quite a number of principal's masters in the heaven-cleaving alliance. These principal's masters also had differences in strength and status. And the three palace masters mentioned by the silver-haired old woman were the three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces, the Heaven and Earth Palace, the Primitive Palace, and the Primal Chaos Palace. They controlled the three palaces and had most of the resources of the heaven-cleaving three palaces. They were high and powerful, and their strength was also incomparably powerful. Emotion and the others were also in awe of these three palace masters. Oh! Emotion's expression suddenly changed. As expected, the three palace masters summoned me. After saying that, Emotion ignored the reactions of the people around him and directly closed his eyes at the table. The silver-haired old woman, the three-eyed man, and the jade-haired woman did not dare to disturb him. This was an incomparably grand palace. There were incomparably tall steps on the palace. At the top of the steps, 3 thrones stood side by side. On the thrones, there was a hazy figure. These 3 hazy figures belonged to the 3 palace masters. And below the great hall, Emotion stood there respectfully. Of course, regardless of whether it was the 3 palace masters or Emotion, they were merely consciousness incarnations. Their true bodies were all in different places. Emotion, about that genius called Heavenly Sword Marquis, say it. Among the 3 palace masters, the palace master sitting in the middle spoke. Emotion took a deep breath and then respectfully explained everything he knew in detail, including the scene where he personally invited Jian Wushuang to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and even some speculations about Jian Wushuang's refusal. In the chaotic void, beside the stone table, Emotion opened his eyes again. Emotion, how is it? The silver-haired old woman, the 3-eyed man, and the green-haired woman immediately looked over. The 3 palace masters summoned me and asked me in detail about Heavenly Sword Marquis. After that, the 3 palace masters discussed for a bit and came to a decision. Emotion said, "What decision?" Should we send another invitation to Heavenly Sword Marquis? The silver-haired old woman asked. No. Emo-shan shook his head. According to the rules of the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces, no matter how outstanding a genius is, he will only be invited twice. This is the pride of the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces. Although Heavenly Sword Marquis is extremely talented, it is not to the extent that the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces would break the rules. However what? The silver-haired old woman immediately asked. Although the 3 palace masters did not ask me to invite Heavenly Sword Marquis again, they made an exception for him. Emo-shan said. Make an exception? The 3 silver-haired old women were very puzzled. Heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Emo-shan's voice sank. The 3 palace masters have instructed that Heavenly Sword Marquis has unparalleled potential and limitless achievements in the future. Even if he doesn't want to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, he can only be a friend of the heaven-cleaving alliance and not an enemy. What should be roped in, must be roped in. Therefore, they agreed to make an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. What? What? The 3 silver-haired old women were shocked. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm. If it was an ordinary expert, hearing these words would not cause any waves. However, the few people present were all high-level officials of the 3 palaces. They knew a lot of secrets about the many resources in the heaven-cleaving alliance. For example, they knew very deeply about the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. It was said that the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was a mystic realm opened by the mysterious leader of the heaven-cleaving alliance. Moreover, this mystic realm was not the heaven and earth mystic realm, but the universe mystic realm. It was one of the biggest opportunities in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces and even the entire heaven-cleaving alliance. It contained endless opportunities. No matter who it was, anyone who entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm could gain a lot. They could even obtain great fortune. Many people's strength improved greatly because they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. There were also some people who were stuck at a bottleneck for many years and were unable to make a breakthrough, but once they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, they immediately made a breakthrough. There were also some people who did not improve much when they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, but after they came out of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, their strength increased by leaps and bounds. In short, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was definitely a land of fortune. There were many geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, and everyone was filled with desire for the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. However, even among the geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, 99% of them were not qualified to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Instead, they needed certain conditions. This specific condition was the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces genius competition every 10,000 years. This competition would give birth to 3 people who could enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Among them, there were 2 from the primal chaos palace, a total from the primitive palace, and none from the heaven and earth palace. One had to know that this was a chance that only came once every 10,000 years, and there were only 3 people who could enter. One could imagine how harsh the conditions for entering the heaven-cleaving mystic realm were. But now, this Heavenly Sword Marquis was not a member of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, but the 3 palace masters actually made an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Was this a very big exception? Impossible, this is impossible. No matter what, that Heavenly Sword Marquis is not a member of the 3 palaces. How could the 3 palace masters make an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm because of his high talent? The 3-eyed man growled. I also think it is impossible, but it is the truth. This was personally ordered by the 3 palace masters, and they all came to a unanimous decision, Emo-shan said. This? The 3-eyed man could not help but be stunned. Could there be other reasons besides the talent of the Heavenly Sword Marquis? The silver-haired old woman suddenly asked. Maybe. Emo-shan shrugged. But no matter what, the 3 palace masters have already given the order, and this matter is left to me. It seems that I have to go meet the Heavenly Sword Marquis again. Chapter 3063. First Heaven _Jian Wushuang, Jiu Luo, and the others continued to move forward in the White Bone region. But even now, the false saints in the team could not calm down for a long time. Even Jiao Luo looked at Jian Wushuang with great enthusiasm. Brother Heavenly Marquis, the three people just now came from the heaven-cleaving three palaces. The legendary heaven-cleaving three palaces are full of geniuses, and they are the genius disciples of the primitive palace. However, they were defeated by you when they joined hands. Brother Heavenly Marquis, aren't you too powerful? Jiao Luo was extremely excited. He was a genius too, but he was far inferior to the genius disciples of the heaven-cleaving three palaces. However, judging from the battle results just now, the geniuses of the three palaces were obviously inferior to Jian Wushuang. It's true that those three are geniuses of the three palaces. However, just because they are from the three palaces, it doesn't mean that they can look down on everything. The world is very big. There is a sky beyond the sky, and a mountain is as tall as a mountain. This time, they were just unlucky and happened to meet me, Jian Wushuang said calmly. He was not proud of defeating the three of them. Jian Wushuang had always believed that there was a sky beyond the sky. Although he was already incredibly powerful among the rank 1 true saints in terms of strength, he did not dare to say that his battle strength was superior to all the rank 1 true saints in the divine beginning world. It was difficult to guarantee that there would not be some rank 1 true saints in the divine beginning world who were even more powerful than him. Jian Wushuang would always be in awe of the world. Only by being in awe of the world from time to time, not being complacent, and not being arrogant, could they live long. The team continued to move forward. They were lucky. In the following time, their team did not encounter too much trouble. Instead, they passed through the white bone field relatively smoothly. After passing through the white bone field, they had already arrived at the edge of the third heaven. Buzz buzz. An ancient and incomparably yearning aura spread out from a vast and boundless land in front of them. Looking at the vast and boundless land in front of them, the false saints in the team all revealed ecstatic expressions. Third heaven. Is that the third heaven? The gathering place of the legendary experts. I've finally reached the third heaven. Exclamations sounded in the crowd. Jian Wushuang was also shining with a strange light. He looked at the huge continent in front of him and felt everything around him at the same time. The heaven and earth spiritual chi and the power of rules are obviously much denser here than in the endless territory. No wonder everyone yearns for this place. It's much easier to cultivate and comprehend the rules here than in the endless territory, Jian Wushuang thought. Besides the heaven and earth spiritual chi and the rule power, Jian Wushuang also knew the difference between the third heaven and the endless territory. The third heaven was the core of the divine beginning world. The power of the will of heaven was the strongest here, much stronger than in the endless territory. When I used the life level pressure to perform the heaven-cleaving skill in the endless territories, I alarmed the will of heaven and caused the power of the will of heaven to descend directly. At that time, the power of the will of heaven that descended was terrifying and far beyond my ability to resist. But now, in the third heaven, the power of the will of heaven is the strongest. If I use the life level pressure or the heaven-cleaving skill and summon the will of heaven, I'm afraid no one can save me. Jian Wushuang was very vigilant. He would never reveal his life level pressure and heaven-cleaving skill when he reached the third heaven. According to the information I got from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the third heaven does not refer to one continent, but three. Jian Wushuang suddenly raised his head and looked at the top of the void, his eyes slightly focused. Although he could not see anything with his naked eyes, he was very clear that the so-called third heaven was actually a pyramid composed of 3 continents. Like what Jian Wushuang and the others were seeing now, the giant continent in front of them was only the first heaven. And above the first heaven, hundreds of millions of miles in the sky, there was a giant continent floating there. It was the second heaven. Above the second heaven, at the top of the heaven and earth, was the real third heaven. It was said that the 3 masters of the saint realm who stood at the top of the third heaven had created a great saint realm in the third heaven, which was why they were called masters of the saint realm. The third heaven and the 3 continents are like a mountain. The first heaven is just the foot of the mountain, the second heaven is the mountainside, and the third heaven is the real mountaintop, which is the real peak. For me now, the first heaven alone is enough for me to travel for a long time, Jian Wushuang thought. One had to take one step at a time, and one had to eat one mouthful at a time. He was only a first-level true saint. Although his combat power was not bad, there were many people in the first heaven who were stronger than him, not to mention the third heaven. Everyone, this is the edge of the first heaven. Let's separate here, a false saint in the team suddenly said. Everyone nodded. They had formed a team to pass through the bone domain together. Now that they had passed the bone domain, there was no need to form a team anymore. Thank you, Lord Heavenly Marquis and Jiu Luo. Yes, if it weren't for you, it would be difficult for us to pass through the bone domain. Thank you, my lords. The false saints thanked Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo one by one. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo only smiled faintly. Soon, the false saints left one after another. Jiu Luo did not leave directly. Instead, he looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, Brother Heavenly Marquis, you just arrived at the first heaven. Do you have any plans? Not yet, Jian Wushuang said. If you don't have any plans and don't know where to go, why don't you come with me? Jiu Luo said expectantly. Come with you? Where do you plan to go? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, Jiu Luo pondered for a moment, then he smiled and said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, to tell you the truth, many years ago, when I was just a divine master, I met a mysterious expert when I was adventuring in the 9 Seas Star Country. That mysterious expert also saw that his talent was good and gave me an opportunity. He also said that if one day I could break through to the immortal saint realm, I could come to the first heaven and look for him in the juvenile god sect and take him as my master. Therefore, I rushed to the first heaven to find him in the juvenile god sect. Juvenile god sect? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Chapter 3064. The Junior Divine Sect. When he was in the Endless Territories, Jian Wushuang had carefully read all kinds of information about the third heaven, including the various sects and powers in the third heaven. For example, the most famous sects in the first heaven were the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sects. They were the top sects in the first heaven. Of course, the sects and powers in the first heaven were far more than these. There were even some powerful sects that were comparable to the 12 divine sects and the 9 courtyards. However, they were not that famous. Jian Wushuang knew about the Young Divine Sect because it was one of the 12 divine sects. The Young Divine Sect was able to become one of the 12 divine sects because it had once given birth to a principal's master. I've just arrived at the first heaven. Although I've read some information here, I've never experienced the real environment. The Young Divine Sect is one of the 12 divine sects. It's a good place for me to stay and familiarize myself with the environment, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He had already made up his mind. Okay, I'll go with you to the Young Divine Sect, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. That's great. Let's go now. Jiu Luo seemed very excited. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo immediately set off together. The first heaven was very big and boundless. There were many countries in the first heaven. Each country had its own emperor. However, these countries all submitted to the sects, such as the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sects. They all occupied many countries. Among them, the Young Divine Sect had 81 countries, which were extremely powerful. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo had already obtained the star map of the first heaven. They also knew about the existence of some spatial passageways. It only took them a short time to pass through the spatial passageways. They had already arrived in front of the Young Divine Sect. That's the Young Divine Sect. Jiu Luo stood high in the void and looked at the ancient sect that occupied a huge territory in front of them. The sect was completely covered in a layer of faint purple fog. The entire sect seemed to be faintly discernible and extremely strange. If one closed their eyes, no one would even think that there was a sect there. Instead, it seemed to be an empty void. The time and space where the sect is located is very special. Jian Wushuang stared at the ancient sect in front of him. He had a feeling that the ancient sect seemed to be out of place with the surrounding time and space, as if the two were in different time and space. Jian Wushuang had felt this strange feeling from Mo Shan, the senior of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. If I'm not wrong, the reason why I have this special feeling is because of the secret realm of heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang's expression darkened. It's not surprising that the young divine sect doesn't exist in this space-time, but in the heaven and earth secret realm created by an expert. The heaven and earth secret realm was created by a principal's master. The heaven and earth secret realm was extremely strong and could store many things. It was normal for a rule master to put his sect in his own heaven and earth secret realm. If the secret realm of heaven and earth was complemented by a powerful formation, even some powerful principal's masters would not be able to shake the sect. After all, it was very difficult to destroy a secret realm of heaven and earth with the support of a formation. Brother Heavenly Marquis, let's go down, Jiu Luo said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. The two turned into two long arcs and rushed toward the gate of the young divine sect. There were more than 10 people guarding the huge gate, including some true saint experts. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo were immediately stopped when they landed in front of the gate. Who are you? What are you doing in the young divine sect? A true saint stared at Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo coldly. Jian Wushuang looked indifferent. Jiu Luo said, "My name is Jiu Luo. I just came from the endless territories. As for my purpose, I met a senior named Su Qianxiu from the young divine sect a long time ago. He gave me an opportunity and said that I would come to the young divine sect to take him as my master after I reached the immortal saint realm. This is the token he gave me when he left." Jiu Luo took out a token. It was just an ordinary token, but it contained a special aura. The true saint took the token and looked at Jiu Luo in surprise. "You're Elder Su's disciple?" Elder Su has a strange temper and is always in closed-door cultivation. I've never heard of him having any disciples. I'm not sure either, but it's been 3,000 years since Elder Su gave me the opportunity, said Jiu Luo. Alright, wait here for a while. I need to confirm it first, said the true saint. No problem. Jiu Luo smiled and waited in front of the mountain gate. Not long after, a middle-aged man in a loose robe walked out. Deacon Wan. Upon seeing this middle-aged man, the people guarding the mountain gate all bowed respectfully. In the young divine sect, Deacon was second only to elders, and their status was extremely high. Who is Jiu Luo? The middle-aged man in the loose robe, Deacon Wan, asked. I am, Jiu Luo answered immediately. Deacon Wan nodded slightly. I just confirmed with Elder Su that he did go to the Endless Territories 3,000 years ago and left an opportunity for a little guy named Jiu Luo. As for what you said about acknowledging him as your master, it is true. However, Elder Su said that he is currently in closed-door cultivation and will only come out after some time. Therefore, he wants me to settle you down first. When he comes out of closed-door cultivation, you can formally kowtow and acknowledge him as your master. No problem. Jiu Luo was delighted. By the way, this heavenly marquis brother beside me is my good friend. He came with me from the Endless Territories. I wonder if he can come with me? Your good friend? Deacon Wan glanced at Jian Wushuang. He nodded again and said, Since you are about to take Elder Su as your master, you must be a disciple of the young divine sect. A core disciple invites a good friend to the sect as a guest. Of course, the young divine sect won't refuse. You too come with me. After that, Deacon Wan led Jiu Luo and Jian Wushuang into the young divine sect. When they entered the sect, Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo immediately saw a magnificent and even shocking scene. They saw a dense cluster of 30,000-meter tall mountains standing in every corner. There were endless pavilions and palaces. Some were suspended in the void, while others stood on the mountains. The surrounding void was filled with white clouds. There were even some strange beasts and immortal birds. They were magnificent and fascinating. Chapter 3065. Senior Brother Bai Shao, thanks. These are the real big sections. They are so magnificent that the sects in the Endless Territories can't compare to them. Jiu Luo walked behind Deacon Wan and sighed from time to time. Jian Wushuang also nodded secretly. Although the young divine sect was just a sect, it was actually a world in a secret realm of heaven and earth. The interior of the sect was indeed magnificent. Our young divine sect is one of the 12 first firmament divine sections. Furthermore, the founder of our young divine sect, is a true master of principles. Although he has already fallen, the many things he left behind have benefited our young divine sect immensely. Furthermore, our young divine sect is extremely ancient. Countless years have passed since it was founded. This foundation isn't something an ordinary sect can compare to. This is your first time in the sect, so you don't know much. When you take Elder Su as your master and truly integrate into the young divine sect, you'll know how lucky you are to be able to become a subordinate of the young divine sect, Deacon 1 said from the front. Upon hearing this, Jiao Luo's expectations grew. At this moment, oh, what's going on there? Jiao Luo suddenly looked at the void beside him. In that empty space, there was a huge floating martial arts practice field. At this moment, there were many people gathered on the martial arts practice field. The people gathered there all looked very young, and most of them were only false saints or first or second level true saints. There were even some divine masters. It was very obvious that they were all disciples of the young divine sect. And with so many disciples gathered together, it was obvious that something had happened. Deacon 1 also glanced at the martial arts practice field and then smiled. Well, it's a coincidence that you're here today. Bai Xiao, the #1 genius of our young divine sect, just came back from the divine ancestor Dao field. Along with him are a few of his good friends from the divine ancestor Dao field. Because it's rare for him to come back, the sect master personally ordered him to have a good exchange with some core disciples of our young divine sect. Is that so? Jiao Luo raised his eyebrows. The divine ancestor Taoist sect? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. I've heard of the divine ancestor Taoist sect. It's one of the 3 free organizations in the divine beginning world. Could senior brother Bai Xiao have joined the divine ancestor Taoist sect? Yes. Deacon 1 nodded. At the same time, he said proudly, Bai Xiao is the most outstanding genius disciple of our young divine sect. He's even ranked at the top among all the geniuses in our sect's history. 100 years ago, he joined the divine ancestor Taoist sect and entered the Taoist palace, which specializes in cultivating top geniuses. He was also lucky enough to be under the tutelage of an invincible immortal saint from the divine ancestor Taoist sect. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew about the divine ancestor Taoist sect from Shuebei, but he had never heard of the Dao Palace. However, from what Deacon 1 said, he understood that the Dao Palace should be the same as the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, which were used to cultivate top geniuses. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces, and the divine ancestor Taoist sect also had a Dao Palace. As expected, the Space-Time Temple should also have a special place to cultivate geniuses. Since Bai Xiao was able to join the Taoist Rite Temple and was able to be taken in as a disciple by an invincible immortal saint, his talent was indeed not considered weak. Jiao Luo, you have just arrived at my young divine sect, and yet you are able to see Bai Xiao. Consider yourself lucky. In a few days, Bai Xiao will return to the divine ancestor Taoist Rite Temple with a few of his good friends. This is a rare opportunity. Do you want to go and look for Bai Xiao as well to exchange ideas with him? Deacon 1 suddenly asked. Is that possible? Jiao Luo was clearly very excited. Of course. Deacon 1 smiled. All right, let's hurry over. Jiao Luo could not wait any longer. The 3 of them immediately changed directions and quickly arrived at the floating martial arts practice field. When they arrived at the martial arts practice field, they happened to see that handsome young man, Bai Xiao, dressed in white robes, had easily defeated a second-level true saint disciple of the young divine sect. This scene also caused the surrounding people to cry out in surprise. One had to know that Bai Xiao's own realm was only a first-level true saint. Additionally, it was worth mentioning that Bai Xiao was also skilled in the Tao of the sword. Bai Xiao. Deacon 1 walked forward and his voice clearly became gentler. Oh, Deacon 1? Bai Xiao glanced at Deacon 1 and smiled. Is there something the matter? It's like this. This little fellow is called Jiao Luo. He was a disciple Elder Su took in 3,000 years ago in the Endless Territories. Today, he just arrived at our young divine sect and happened to see you conversing with the disciples of our sect. I told him not to miss this opportunity, so he came over, Deacon 1 said. Elder Su's disciple? Bai Xiao's expression changed. As far as I know, Elder Su has very high standards. To be able to catch his eye and take him in as a disciple, his strength and talent must be extraordinary. Junior brother Jiu Luo, let's spar a bit. Thank you for your guidance, senior brother. Jiu Luo was incomparably excited as he took a deep breath. Senior brother Bai Xiao, be careful. Jiu Luo finished speaking. Boom. A powerful aura suddenly erupted like a volcano that had been silent for hundreds of millions of years. Jiu Luo's figure suddenly charged forward, and the blood-colored battle saber on his back was instantly unsheathed. Voila! A bewitching blood-colored blade light appeared out of thin air, directly piercing through the void. It was as if the entire world had been split apart by this blood-colored blade light. The surrounding void also became completely dark. It was incomparably dark. Under this endless darkness, this blood-colored blade light appeared extremely dazzling. It was even extremely intoxicating. Seeing this blade light, many of the surrounding Heavenly God sect disciples revealed shocked expressions. This was because the aura and power of Jiu Luo's blade was already comparable to the full-strength attack of a rank 2 true saint. Not bad. Even Bai Xiao nodded slightly, and then he took a step forward. He took a step forward and closed the distance between him and Jiu Luo. Then he casually swung his sword. Clang! Clang! 2 consecutive strikes appeared extremely relaxed. However, the first strike directly changed the direction of Jiu Luo's blade. The second strike passed by Jiu Luo and cut off one of his arms. This, too powerful. Senior apprentice brother Bai Xiao only used the divine power of a rank 1 true saint, but his swordsmanship is too terrifying. This Jiu Luo guy's saber is already so terrifying, but in front of senior apprentice brother Bai Xiao, he has no ability to resist at all. Exclamations immediately sounded in the surroundings. As for Jiu Luo, as a true saint, even if his divine body completely collapsed, he could rely on his immortal body to regenerate. Just one arm, Jiu Luo was able to instantly recover. Amazing! Jiu Luo's gaze was also incomparably hot as he stared at Bai Xiao. Senior brother Bai Xiao, your swordsmanship is truly amazing. Among all the first-level true saints I've seen, apart from the Heavenly Marquis brothers, your swordsmanship should be the strongest. Chapter 3066. Swordsmanship. Jiu Luo was straightforward. He did not think too much about it. He did think Bai Xiao's swordsmanship was powerful, but at the same time, he also mentioned Jian Wushuang. The Heavenly Marquis brothers? Bai Xiao's eyes slightly moved. Junior brother Jiu Luo, who are the Heavenly Marquis brothers you mentioned just now? This. Jiu Luo was startled. He immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. He immediately said, Senior martial brother Bai Xiao, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that your sword techniques are inferior to the Heavenly Marquis brothers. I just think that the sword techniques of the two of you are very impressive. Now that you mention it, I'm even more curious. Bai Xiao laughed. Even in the Dao Palace that is filled with monsters, there are only a handful of first-level true saints who are comparable to me in terms of sword Dao and sword techniques. The meaning behind your words just now is clear that your Heavenly Marquis brothers can be compared to me in terms of sword techniques. In fact, they might even be stronger than me. Jiu Luo frowned. Deacon 1 smiled and said, Bai Xiao, your junior brother Jiu Luo has just come from the endless territory, so his vision is inevitably limited. You don't have to take it seriously. As for his Heavenly Marquis brother, I know that I'm the little guy next to me, but he also just came from the endless territory. Oh! Jiu Luo's eyes moved slightly, and then he looked directly at Jian Wushuang. Many disciples of the Young Divine sect also looked at Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang, he touched his nose with a strange expression. He did not feel anything when Jiu Luo fought with Bai Xiao, but when Jiu Luo lost and said that, Jian Wushuang knew it was going to be bad. He knew very well that a top genius like Bai Xiao had his own pride. Even in the Dao Palace, which was full of geniuses, his pride would not be weakened. Even if there were more talented people in the Dao Palace, he would also dare to compete with stronger geniuses. But now, Jiu Luo's words clearly meant that Bai Xiao's swordsmanship might not be as good as his. Even if Jiu Luo just said it casually, it would still attract Bai Xiao's attention. As expected, now Bai Xiao came to find him. Are you the heavenly marquis brother that junior brother Jiu Luo mentioned? Bai Xiao stared at Jian Wushuang. Yes, I am. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Is your swordsmanship very powerful? Bai Xiao asked. It's just SOSO, Jian Wushuang replied. Just SOSO? That can't be right. Bai Xiao smiled. Junior brother Jiuluo's talent is not bad. Since he just said that, he must have seen your swordsmanship and knows that your swordsmanship is extraordinary. This makes me curious. How about we have a head-on swordsmanship competition here? A swordsmanship competition? Jian Wushuang smiled. The surrounding disciples of the young divine sect immediately burst into an uproar. Did you hear that? Senior brother Bai Xiao wants to compete with this person in swordsmanship? Weren't we the ones who went to ask for senior brother Bai Xiao's advice before? Why is senior brother Bai Xiao taking the initiative to compete with him now? It's all because of junior brother Jiu Luo's words just now. His words clearly mean that senior brother Bai Xiao's swordsmanship is not as good as his heavenly marquis brother. If I were senior brother Bai Xiao, I would definitely be unconvinced in my heart. I would definitely find this person and compete with him. The sound of private discussions also resounded throughout the martial arts practice field. There were 3 figures standing quietly beside the crowd. Like Bai Xiao, these 3 people were top geniuses from the Dao Palace. When they heard Bai Xiao mention the competition to Jian Wushuang, the 3 people looked at each other and smiled. Bai Xiao, your junior brother just said it unintentionally. You don't have to be so serious, right? The red-haired man with his arms crossed said with a smile. That's right. This senior brother of yours just came from endless territories and has seen some geniuses before. He just randomly met someone whose swordsmanship is more outstanding and felt that he was very powerful. This is very normal. There's no need for you to be so calculative, a black-robed young man said. In my opinion, it's better to forget about it, the beautiful woman in golden armor said at the end. The 3 of them seemed to be trying to persuade Bai Xiao, but in fact, they were all gloating. Bai Xiao was arrogant, and like Bai Xiao, they were all from the Dao Palace. Of course, there were also arrogant people. They were not happy with what Jiu Luo had said. After all, they were the top geniuses selected by the divine ancestor Dao Palace. They stood at the top of the entire divine beginning world. How could any one of them be comparable to them? Brother Heavenly Marquis. Jiu Luo looked at Jian Wushuang apologetically. He had said it casually and unintentionally, but he did not expect it to bring so much trouble to Jian Wushuang. This battle is inevitable. Bai Xiao's eyes sparkled as he stared at Jian Wushuang. How about it? Do you dare to compete? Jian Wushuang shrugged and said casually, since you want to compete, fine, I'll grant you your wish. Very good. Here, you and I will only use the divine power of an ordinary rank 1 true saint to compete in swordsmanship. I'll let you fight first. Bai Xiao smiled with absolute confidence. Let me fight first? Are you sure? Jian Wushuang looked at Bai Xiao with interest. Of course. Bai Xiao nodded, but he did not take Jian Wushuang seriously. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and the Blood Mountain sword appeared in his hand. In the Bodhi world, I created a complete peerless sword manual with 7 sword techniques. Except for the Shi Xiang, Star Dream, and the 9th Firmament illusionary sword realm, I haven't experienced any real combat with these 7 sword techniques. Now, I'll use this Bai Xiao to test my sword techniques. Jian Wushuang tightened his grip on the Blood Mountain sword, a faint smile on his face. Then, under the watchful eyes of the surrounding disciples, he moved. Buzz, buzz, buzz. One after another, strange figures suddenly burst out. At this moment, hundreds and thousands of Jian Wushuang appeared in the world. Space-time illusionary body? Such a crude method is still being used? Bai Xiao laughed disdainfully. Space-time phantoms was a technique that could be used after comprehending the first stage of the space-time principles. Most divine masters who had comprehended the space-time principles could easily use hundreds or thousands of phantoms, Compared to true saints, it was indeed a very crude technique. However, Jian Wushuang did not say anything. After the phantoms burst out at the same time, he suddenly took a step forward, and the blood mountain sword in his hand fell straight down. Bai Xiao, the 3 genius disciples from the Dao Palace, and many disciples from the Young Divine sect only saw a flash of sword shadow. Chapter 3067. The Moment of Life and Death Buzz. The void had calmed down again, and Jian Wushuang's thousands of space-time phantoms had disappeared. However, Jian Wushuang had already arrived behind Bai Xiao. "Thank you," Jian Wushuang said lightly, and the Blood Mountain sword had been put back into his universe bag. Bai Xiao, on the other hand, was completely stunned with his eyes wide open. Not only him, but Deacon Wan and the 3 genius disciples from the Dao Palace were also shocked. On the other hand, the disciples of the Young Divine sect were confused. What happened? Is it over? What happened just now? Has senior brother Bai Xiao defeated the heavenly Marquis brothers? The disciples of the Young Divine sect asked each other. "Shut up!" A low shout suddenly sounded. The one who had shouted was a peak rank 2 true saint who specialized in sword Dao. At this moment, this peak rank 2 true saint's body was trembling, and his eyes were filled with unprecedented shock. "He's lost. Senior brother Bai Xiao has lost." The peak stage 2nd rank true saint said. "What?" The disciples of the Young Divine sect were all shocked. "It's too fast. That sword just now was too fast." The peak stage 2nd rank true saint exclaimed, "That extremely fast sword was unbelievably fast. Senior brother Bai Xiao didn't even have time to react before he was defeated. Didn't you notice that there was a white mark on senior brother Bai Xiao's right shoulder? That white mark was left behind by that heavenly Marquis brother's long sword." White mark? There really is a white mark? And it was clearly left behind just now. Senior brother Bai Xiao really lost? These Young Divine sect disciples instantly erupted into an intense clamor, and everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Not to mention them, even Bai Xiao's mind was somewhat muddled. How could it be so fast? He really could not figure it out. By that moment, Jian Wushuang's sword move was too fast. It was so fast that he could not react at all and was already defeated. The white mark on his right shoulder was indeed left by Jian Wushuang's longsword. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had shown mercy. If Jian Wushuang's sword move had been aimed at his neck, his entire head would have been cut off. Taking a deep breath, Bai Xiao looked at Jian Wushuang again, his expression becoming more serious than ever. "What was the name of your sword?" "I created it myself in the moment of life and death," Jian Wushuang said indifferently. "The moment of life and death?" Bai Xiao was startled. He immediately recalled the sword, or to be more precise, that moment. It was an extremely short, almost negligible moment. Jian Wushuang used his swordsmanship and directly swept past him. In a normal fight, that moment could indeed decide life and death. The moment of life and death referred to that moment. This sword move was the fastest and most terrifying sword move of the 7 sword moves created by Jian Wushuang. This sword move was pure speed and extremely fast. It was completely different from Star Dream and the 9th heaven of Illusionary Sword. Although Star Dream was fast, the most powerful sword move was the tearing power contained in the sword edge. The 9th heaven of Illusionary Sword was also a sword move that emphasized speed. However, this sword move moved 9 times in an extremely short period of time. Each sword move was faster than the last, making the opponent tired of defending and fighting. It was best to use it to suppress the opponent. However, in the moment of life and death, this was a killer move. One sword attack could decide life and death in an instant. With Jian Wushuang's current strength, even a rank 4 true saint would not be able to withstand such a fast sword attack if he used his full strength. Although Bai Xiao's strength was impressive and his sword principle and swordsmanship were not weak, in front of Jian Wushuang, or to be exact, in front of Jian Wushuang's moment of life and death swordsmanship, he did not have any room to display it. Now I finally understand why junior brother Jiuluo said that. He's right. In terms of sword principle and swordsmanship, I am inferior to you. Bai Xiao looked at Jian Wushuang and said seriously. He was arrogant, but he was not a narrow-minded person. Before Jian Wushuang showed his strength, Jiu Luo said that his swordsmanship was inferior to Jian Wushuang. Of course, he was not convinced. But now, in the real fight, the result had been determined in an instant. He was also convinced of Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. I can only show that move just now, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. Is that so? Bai Xiao took a deep look at Jian Wushuang, then he said, Deacon Wan, Mr. Heaven Marquis is extremely talented in sword principle. He is an out-and-out genius. It is our good fortune that such a genius can come to our young divine sect. We must treat him well. After saying that, Bai Xiao gave Deacon Wan a meaningful look. Deacon Wan understood. My young friend, let me take you to where you live, Deacon Wan said in a gentle tone. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and then followed Deacon Wan with Jiu Luo. After Jian Wushuang left, the martial arts practice field was in an uproar. The disciples of the Shaotian sect were all talking about the fight just now. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao had come to the side of the three Dao Palace geniuses. You three, you should have seen what happened just now, right? Bai Xiao asked. To be honest, I could barely see a sword shadow, the red-haired man said. Me too. His sword was too fast. If it was directed at me, I would have been the same as you. I wouldn't have had time to react, the beautiful woman in golden armor said. Hey Qing, what about you? You're the strongest among the four of us, and you're also good at speed. If it had been you just now, would you have been able to block that sword attack? Bai Xiao looked toward the black-robed young man at the end. The black-robed young man frowned slightly. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. I'm not confident. Not confident. These three simple words caused the bodies and hearts of the four people to sink. They were all top geniuses from the Dao Palace, yet they were all frightened by the other party's sword just now. Moreover, they actually had no way of receiving that sword. Although we don't know the exact origin of this heavenly marquis, just the sword technique he just displayed is enough to show that his talent in the Dao of the sword is extremely high. He is an out-and-out genius in the Dao of the sword. In terms of talent, he is probably only stronger than the few of us, the red-haired man said with a serious expression. Chapter 3068. Master has arrived under, is he stronger than them? No one dared to deny this. The most important thing is that the heavenly sword marquis only used one sword attack. Although he said that it was the only sword attack he could use, we have no idea how strong his talent in sword Dao is. It's still unknown, and we have no way of testing it out, the black-robed youth said. That's why it's so troublesome. But no matter what, just the talent he's displaying right now should be enough to make the Dao Palace take him seriously, the red-haired man said. Bai Xiao, this is within the young divine sect. The heavenly sword marquis is also a guest in your sect. What do you think we should do? The beautiful woman in golden armor looked at Bai Xiao. I've already reported this matter to my master, Bai Xiao said directly. Lord Bingfeng? The red-haired man and the other two immediately looked over. It's a coincidence. Master happened to be visiting his old friend in the first heavenly layer. He rushed over from where he was and will be here in less than 3 days. Once Master arrives and personally meets the heavenly sword marquis, we can decide what to do then, Bai Xiao said. Yes, Master Iceberg is an invincible immortal saint and one of the higher-ups of the Dao Palace. We can't find out the truth about the heavenly sword marquis, but he will be exposed in front of Master Iceberg. At that time, we will see how talented he is. At the same time, we can decide how much we have to pay to recruit him, the red-haired man said. There was no doubt that Dao Palace would be interested in a sword principle genius like Jian Wushuang. As for how much it would cost Dao Palace to recruit him, it would depend on Jian Wushuang's specific talent and strength. Deacon Wan arranged a place for Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo before leaving. Jiu Luo stayed with Jian Wushuang. Brother Heavenly Marquis, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, Jiu Luo said apologetically. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. He knew that Jiu Luo did not mean to do that, so he did not blame the latter. However, after this collision with Bai Xiao, he was afraid that he would encounter some trouble. Of course, it was not a big trouble and it would not pose any threat to him. Bai Xiao and the others are from the Dao Palace of the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect, and the nature of the Dao Palace is the same as the heaven-cleaving three palaces. Now that I have shown some tricks in front of Bai Xiao and the others, they will certainly report this matter to the higher-ups of the Dao Palace. Perhaps the higher-ups of the Dao Palace already know about it and have sent people over, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. The experts sent by the Dao Palace must have come to rope him in. Whatever, he'll just take it one step at a time. Jian Wushuang did not think about it anymore. Then, he temporarily settled down in the Young Divine sect. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Outside the mountain gate of the Young Divine sect, 2 figures slowly walked over from the distant void. They were clearly still quite a distance away from the Young Divine sect, but in just a few steps, the 2 of them had already arrived at the entrance. Lord, we have already arrived at the Young Divine sect. A white-robed man with an ice-cold aura spoke with a hint of respect. The one who replied was a white-haired elder with a child's face. This elder was thin and weak, and his eyes were extremely small, like the eyes of a mouse. The elder with a child's face and white hair looked down at the ancient sect below, but his expression slowly changed. The Young Divine sect. The one who founded the Young Divine sect back then still has a certain degree of friendship with me. We even went to a dangerous place to explore together. Unfortunately, his ambition was too great, and he wanted to search for a great opportunity in the cosmic battlefield. In the end, he died in the cosmic battlefield. The elder with a child's face and white hair sighed softly, his voice was also rather deep. Iceberg, isn't that disciple of yours in the Young Divine sect? Send a message to him, the white-haired elder instructed. Yes. The iceberg-like white-robed man nodded slightly. He then took out his token and sent a message to Bai Xiao. After sending the message, the 2 of them waited here for a short while. The mystic realm where the Young Divine sect was located suddenly shook. Soon after, the mountain gate opened, and dozens of figures came out to welcome them. These dozens of figures were led by a middle-aged man in a loose robe. Behind him were the many elders of the Young Divine sect, and Bai Xiao and the 3 geniuses from the Dao Palace were also among them. Soon, they arrived in front of the white-robed man and the white-robed elder with a childlike face and white hair. Haha, our Young Divine sect is truly honored to have Mr. Iceberg come personally. The middle-aged man in the loose robe let out a hearty laugh. However, he suddenly noticed the white-robed elder with a childlike face beside the ice peak. This elder exuded an extremely unique aura, and his entire person seemed to be incompatible with the surrounding space and time. This is the principal's master. The eyes of the middle-aged man in the loose robe suddenly narrowed. It's Lord Baiju. Bai Xiao and the 3 Dao Palace disciples immediately recognized the white-haired old man. Lord Baiju actually came personally? Sect Master Ceylon. The iceberg-like white-robed man, Iceberg, looked over at the middle-aged man in the long robe. This is Lord Baiju. He happens to be in the first heavenly layer this time, so he came with me. Young Divine Sect's Sect Master Ceylon greets Lord Baiju. Young Divine Sect's Sect Master and the elders behind him immediately bowed. Although the Young Divine Sect was one of the 12 divine sects in the first sky, the strongest expert in the divine sect right now was only a peak rank 7 true saint. In terms of strength, he was far inferior to Iceberg. Facing a principal's master, he was naturally trembling with fear. No need for formalities. Baiju waved his hand. He said, "The founder of your Young Divine sect has a certain relationship with me. This old man received news that a good sword Dao genius has appeared in your sect, so I came over to take a look with Iceberg." Lord has a relationship with my sect? The sect master of the Young Divine sect, Ceylon, was delighted. Sect Master Ceylon, please lead the way, Iceberg urged. Please follow me. Ceylon immediately led Baiju and Iceberg into the sect. Soon, they arrived at the place where Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo lived. Bai Xiao, go and ask him to come out, Ceylon instructed. Yes. Bai Xiao immediately walked forward. Meanwhile, Iceberg asked, I received a message from Bai Xiao earlier. I know that a sword Dao genius has appeared in your Shaotian sect, but according to what Bai Xiao said, This person is not a disciple of your Shaotian sect? That's indeed the case. This little fellow called Heavenly Sword Marquis is merely a guest in our Shaoyan sect. He has nothing to do with our Shaotian sect, so no matter what choice he has, our Shaotian sect cannot force him, Ceylon said. Chapter 3069. Clamp, are you just a guest? Iceberg's expression was cold. Soon, Bai Xiao had brought Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo out. When he saw the expert standing in front of him, even though Jian Wushuang was prepared, he was still a little surprised. There's actually a principal's master here? Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with surprise. Heavenly Sword Marquis, let me introduce you. This is the current sect master of the Young Divine Sect, Sect Master Ceylon, Bai Xiao introduced. Sect Master Ceylon. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly to the middle-aged man in a loose robe. Get up. Sect Master Ceylon smiled faintly. Since you're a guest of the Young Divine Sect, there's no need to be so polite. This is my master, the famous Sword Saint Iceberg of the Divine Beginning World. He's invincible among the immortal saints, Bai Xiao introduced. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at Iceberg. He was dressed in a white robe, and his aura was as cold as an ice mountain. Jian Wushuang felt a vague sword essence from Iceberg, which was so strong that it made his heart palpitate. According to Bai Xiao's introduction, Iceberg was nicknamed Sword Saint Iceberg, and he was an invincible immortal saint. With such great strength, his swordsmanship must have reached the peak. He was not sure about other things. However, Jian Wushuang knew that Sword Saint Iceberg must have reached the third stage of Sword Principle, and his sword essence could evolve into all things. Greetings, Master Iceberg. Jian Wushuang also bowed respectfully. Yes. Iceberg nodded slightly, appearing very cold. And this one? Bai Xiao spoke again, but his voice became obviously excited. This is Master Baiju. Master Baiju is one of the higher-ups of our Divine Ancestor Taoist sect. He is a great principal's master. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the white-haired elder Baiju. Just like when he met Mo Shan, Baiju gave him the feeling that he was not in this space-time. His aura was also very strange. However, it was this strange feeling that made Jian Wushuang extremely shocked. Principal's master was a super expert who stood at the top of the third heaven. Although Jian Wushuang's combat strength was good, he was still far from being a principal's master. Facing Principal's Master Hedon, even Jian Wushuang was a little afraid. Greetings, Master Baiju, Jian Wushuang said respectfully. You're welcome, young man. Baiju smiled calmly, and Jian Wushuang immediately felt relieved. Heavenly Marquis Jian, I heard that you have good talent in Sword Principle. 3 days ago, you fought with my disciple Bai Xiao and defeated him with only one sword. Is that true? Iceberg looked at Jian Wushuang. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Although my disciple's talent in Sword Principle is not the best, he is still outstanding. However, he can't even take one of your sword moves. This makes me very curious. How about this? You can show me that sword move again, Iceberg said seriously. I'll show you. Jian Wushuang was stunned. The people around him were also very strange. No matter how powerful Jian Wushuang was, Iceberg was an invincible existence among the immortal saints. How could Jian Wushuang be qualified to fight with such an expert? Don't worry, I just want to see your swordsmanship. I don't really want to fight with you, Iceberg said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang felt relieved, but then his eyes lit up. An invincible expert who was good at Sword Principle and an immortal saint was standing in front of him, wanting to see his swordsmanship. This was a once-in-lifetime opportunity. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you don't have to be afraid. As your master, I won't hurt you. You just need to display the sword move that defeated me, Bai Xiao said. In that case, please enlighten me. Jian Wushuang took out the Blood Mountain sword with a flip of his hand. The surrounding people immediately gave way to a battleground. Let's fight. Iceberg stood there coldly and his voice was very cold. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and moved in the next moment. Buzz, buzz. Many strange figures suddenly burst out. At this moment, hundreds and thousands of Jian Wushuang appeared in the world. These Jian Wushuang were space-time phantoms. After the phantoms burst out at the same time, Jian Wushuang suddenly took a step forward, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand fell straight down. Wushuang sword manual, life and death moment. In just a moment, Jian Wushuang had already performed a killing move. A sword shadow flashed and then disappeared. Clang. A sound like the collision of metals was heard, and then the whole world became quiet. The experts on the field had their eyes fixed on the center of the void. Sword Saint Iceberg, who was as cold as an ice mountain, was still standing there. He did not draw his sword, and one of his hands was behind his back. As for the other hand, it had already reached out, and on two of the fingers of the hand, majestic divine power gathered. It was holding a cold and sharp longsword. This sword was the Blood Mountain sword. What? Jian Wushuang widened his eyes and looked at Iceberg in astonishment. He had long known that Iceberg was ridiculously strong, and his understanding of sword principle must be much higher than his. But he did not expect Iceberg to be so strong. In the instant of life and death in the unparalleled sword manual he created, this move was so fast that ordinary experts could not react in time. Of course, with Iceberg's strength, he could react in time, but the way he blocked the sword, it was really hard to accept. He actually used two of his fingers to directly clamp the Blood Mountain sword. Jian Wushuang had been cultivating in this life and had encountered many people who were stronger than him. However, this was the first time someone had used two fingers to directly clamp his Blood Mountain sword. The difference in strength was too great. Your sword is indeed good. Iceberg's expression was still cold, and his eyes did not contain any emotion as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted. With a thought, a shocking evil aura suddenly burst out from the Blood Mountain sword. Buzz! The Blood Mountain sword shook violently, and a shrill sword hum echoed in the world. Then the Blood Mountain sword began to struggle crazily under Iceberg's two fingers. Oh! Iceberg raised his eyebrows. He looked at the Blood Mountain sword in surprise, but then he flicked his finger. Chapter 3070, Dao Palace's Invitation, Clang. There was a crisp sound. Jian Wushuang felt that his Blood Mountain sword was hit by an extremely terrifying force. In an instant, the Blood Mountain sword changed its direction and almost fell out of Jian Wushuang's hand. Jian Wushuang followed the Blood Mountain sword and retreated to the side. So powerful, Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Are there any other sword skills? Show them all, Iceberg said coldly. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned slightly. Of course, he had other sword skills. The Wushuang sword manual was a complete sword skill. There were 7 sword skills, and the moment of life and death was only one of them. However, in front of so many people, Jian Wushuang did not want to show all the other sword skills in the Wushuang sword manual. After all, if he displayed all the other 6 sword techniques, it would be obvious that he had created a complete sword technique. Moreover, all the sword techniques were embryonic forms of the sword technique, which would cause a great commotion. Therefore, even though the opportunity to fight with an invincible immortal saint was right in front of him, Jian Wushuang still did not intend to continue. My lord, this is the sword skill that I used to defeat Bai Shao. Other than this sword skill, none of the other sword skills are good enough, Jian Wushuang said straightforwardly. Just this sword skill? Iceberg frowned, obviously a little disappointed. The sword skill that Jian Wushuang just displayed proved that Jian Wushuang was a sword principle genius, but that was all. After all, they came from the Dao Palace. The Dao Palace, like the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces of the heaven-cleaving alliance, was filled with all kinds of monsters and evildoers. Heavenly Sword Marquis Sword just now has reached the level of a 4th level absolute art. His swordsmanship has brought his speed and his comprehension of the space-time principles to the extreme. It is indeed very rare for a 1st-level true saint, and his basic sword principle is very solid. However, among the geniuses and evildoers in the Dao Palace, he is only at the middle level, Iceberg thought to himself. There were countless monsters in the Dao Palace. Among these monsters, there were actually quite a few who had created rank 4 ultimate arts at the rank 1 true saint realm. This was not too surprising. After all, the monsters in the Dao Palace were all able to challenge those of a higher level. Some were even able to directly challenge those of 2 levels higher. The reason why their battle prowess was so outstanding was not just because they knew some special secret arts that could increase the power of their divine power. Most importantly, their comprehension of the principles and Dao was very high. Take Mountain King, Evil Master, and Mirage Water, whom Jian Wushuang had met in the White Bone region, for example. These 3 were only rank 1 true saints, but any one of them could easily suppress a rank 3 true saint. They could even kill a rank 3 true saint with some special means and treasures. Their battle strength was so great, their comprehension of principles and Dao was very good. Mountain King and Evil Master had also created rank 4 absolute arts. The reason why Jian Wushuang could easily defeat the 3 of them was that his peerless sword manual was very good, and his divine power was much stronger than the 3 of them. However, if it was just the comprehension of principles and Dao, Mountain King and the other 2 were actually not inferior to Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Iceberg spoke again. You do have some talent in sword principle. If you are well-groomed, you will have great achievements in the future. The Dao Palace of the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect is to recruit many top geniuses and monsters in the divine beginning world. Are you interested in following me to the Dao Palace? Iceberg was very direct and did not beat around the bush. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang felt even weirder. He had guessed that the experts of the Dao Palace had come to recruit him. He had only used the sword skill of life and death for a moment because he thought it was too troublesome. He did not expect Iceberg to still want him to go to the Dao Palace. Jian Wushuang began to ponder. When the elders and disciples of the young divine sect heard Iceberg's words, they immediately became restless. All they saw were fiery gazes looking at Jian Wushuang. These gazes were more or less filled with envy and jealousy. The Dao Palace was a place specially used by the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect to nurture disciples of top geniuses. It was a place that countless geniuses in the divine beginning world yearned to go. As one of the 12 divine sects, the young divine sect had existed in the first heaven for so many years. In history, there were only 2 people who had joined the Dao Palace. Even including Bai Shao, there were only 3 people. Hearing that Iceberg had invited Jian Wushuang to join the Dao Palace, the experts and disciples of the young divine sect were naturally envious. However, although they were envious, Jian Wushuang did not want to agree at all. He was already thinking about how to refuse. Heavenly Sword Marquis, Master has invited you personally. Why don't you agree? Bai Shao looked over. Brother Sword Heavenly, Jiu Luo said. It was a rare opportunity for them to join the Dao Palace. Who would be so stupid as to refuse? Jian Wushuang was about to speak. Suddenly thus. A magnificent aura swept over. This aura clearly came from outside the young divine sect. However, even though there was a layer of heaven and earth's secret realm between them, that aura had already spread to the interior of the young divine sect. When they sensed this unique aura, the expressions of the many experts present, including Bai Ju, who had been standing there without speaking, changed slightly. This aura is the principal's master. Sect Master Si Lan cried out immediately, another principal's master has arrived. The experts and disciples of the young divine sect all revealed shocked expressions. Just a moment ago, the principal's master, Bai Ju, had personally arrived. However, Bai Ju was a member of the Dao Palace. The reason for his arrival was very obvious. They had also received the news a long time ago. And who was this principal's master who had suddenly descended? And why had he descended? Although he did not know the intentions of the person who had come, Sect Master Si Lan did not dare to bring a principal's master with him when he personally came. He immediately rose up and his mighty voice was already transmitted out. May I know which lord has descended into our young divine sect? I am Mo Shan, from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. A mighty voice was transmitted from outside the young divine sect. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Sect Master Si Lan was shocked. Mo Shan? Bai Ju frowned. Senior Mo Shan? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He knew Mo Shan. The one who had been invited by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to join the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces was Emo Shan, who had reached the level of Principal's Master. When Emo Shan had met him, he had specially given him some pointers. For example, Jian Wushuang had obtained the gold-splitting secret manual under Emo Shan's guidance. And the embryonic form of this swordsmanship was only created after Emo Shan gave him some advice. Chapter 3071. The Order, Senior Emo Shan is here? Is he here for me? Jian Wushuang had a strange look on his face. In his opinion, Emo Shan's invitation was the second time. According to the rule of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces, only 2 invitations could be given to the same genius. If both invitations were rejected, the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces would not invite him for the third time. Then the high-level experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces should not have come looking for him. But no. After knowing the identity of the person who had come, Sect Master Ceylon did not dare to reject him. She immediately went to personally bring him in. Very quickly, the white-haired elder Emo Shan appeared in front of everyone. Oh, is this place quite lively? The moment Emo Shan arrived, he saw the existences of Baiju, Iceberg, and the others. Master Baiju, you are actually here as well? Emo Shan looked at Baiju with a strange gaze. Emo Shan, long time no see. How have you been? Baiju's expression was somewhat unfriendly. It has been many years since we last met. The last time we met, you suffered a small loss at my hands. Looking at you, I'm afraid you still hate me, right? Emo Shan laughed heartily. Baiju snorted and said, I can't be bothered to argue with you about the past. Tell me, why did you come to the Young Divine Sect today? Could it be because of this little fellow? You guessed correctly. I came for this heavenly sword marquis. Emo Shan directly said. How can that be? Although this little fellow's talent isn't bad, if he joins the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces, he would most likely be able to join the Heaven and Earth Palace. As for whether he would be able to join the Primordial Palace or not, it is still unknown. Such a genius shouldn't be worth it for you, the high and mighty Principal's Master, to personally make a trip, right? Baiju frowned and said, Aren't you a Principal's Master as well? Didn't you also appear here? Emo Shan said with a playful tone, I'm different from you. I have some friendship with the founder of the Young Divine Sect. I'm just passing by to take a look, Baiju said. It doesn't matter what you think, but I'm indeed here today for this little fellow, Emo Shan said. Even so, everything must come first, right? This little fellow was discovered by my Dao Palace first, and he was also the first to be invited by my Dao Palace. Even if you have a motive, you have to wait for him to refuse to join my Dao Palace first, Baiju said in a low voice. No, Master of Baiju, I'm afraid you're wrong about one thing. Emo Shan gave a strange smile. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has long discovered this little guy called Heavenly Sword Marquis, because he is a heaven-level member of our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. When he was in the Endless Territories, our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had invited him to join the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces. We even invited him twice, but he just refused. If you don't believe me, you can ask the little guy yourself. Baiju immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. The Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces did invite me twice, and the second time was personally invited by Elder Emo Shan, Jian Wushuang said with a straight face. See, even if it's first come, first served, it's not your Dao Palace's turn, Emo Shan sneered. So what? You said it yourself, the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces have invited this little guy twice, but he refused. According to the rules of the 3 Heaven-Cleaving Palaces, they won't invite him for a third time, right? Baiju stared at Emo Shan. No, of course not. Emo Shan shook his head directly. According to the rules of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces, any genius will only invite him twice at most. This is an iron law set by the Alliance Master, and no one can violate it. However, I'm not here today to invite this little guy to join the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces, but I have another matter. What's the matter? Baiju asked. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you in a hurry? Emo Shan glanced at Baiju, then walked up to Jian Wushuang. Little guy, I'm here to convey the orders of the 3 palace masters of the 3 palaces, Emoshan said seriously. 3 palace masters? Baiju's expression immediately changed. He was a high-ranking official of the Dao Palace, and the Dao Palace usually had exchanges and competitions with the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Therefore, he naturally knew about the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. They were the 3 principles masters who stood at the peak of the divine beginning realm. They held an important position in the heaven-cleaving alliance, and they were only second to the mysterious alliance master of the heaven-cleaving alliance. The 3 of them had given an order? And this order had something to do with Heavenly Sword Marquis? Jian Wushuang also looked at Emoshan solemnly. The 3 palace masters have said that you are extremely talented and have unlimited potential. Your future achievements are limitless. Although you are unwilling to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces because of personal problems, the 3 palace masters still hope that you can receive the most training. Therefore, after a discussion, they decided to make an exception and allow you to enter the heaven-cleaving secret realm once. Heaven-cleaving secret realm. Emoshan said, his expression was solemn. Heaven-cleaving secret realm? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. The experts and disciples of the young divine sect were also puzzled. Even sect master Si Lan, Bai Shao, and the other Dao Palace disciples did not know what the so-called heaven-cleaving secret realm was. Only Baiju and Iceberg were shocked when they heard the words heaven-cleaving secret realm. Baiju, as a principles master, was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. How is this possible? This is impossible. Baiju let out 2 roars and stared at Emoshan. Emoshan, are you kidding me? How could the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces give such an order? This is impossible. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm is an incredible opportunity. Countless geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces drool over the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. However, there are only a few spots in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces every 10,000 years. Why would they give a spot to an outsider? Baiju was very clear about what the heaven-cleaving mystic realm represented. It was because he knew that it was impossible. At least from what he knew, the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces would never be so generous. You don't believe me? Emoshan glanced at Baiju and then smiled playfully. This matter has nothing to do with you. I don't care whether you believe me or not. Chapter 3072. Heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Judging from the skills that Jian Wushuang had just displayed, although he was a genius, he was not too dazzling. Did this little guy hide his strength and skills? Baiju could not help thinking. At this moment, Jian Wushuang asked with doubt, Elder Emoshan, what is the heaven-cleaving mystic realm that you mentioned just now? He did not know what the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was and why it caused such a big reaction from the 100 absolutes. But since it was a mystic realm, in Jian Wushuang's opinion, it should be a heaven and earth mystic realm. Emoshan explained, Little guy, you already know what the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces are, and you know that the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces have gathered countless geniuses. In addition, there are countless cultivation resources in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, and the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is one of the biggest opportunities for the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm was opened by the leader of the heaven-cleaving alliance. It contains a great fortune. Anyone who enters the heaven-cleaving mystic realm can get great opportunities and benefits. However, it is not easy to open opportunities in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Therefore, even in the 3 palaces, there are very few geniuses who are qualified to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Under normal circumstances, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm will only be opened once every 10,000 years, and there will only be a maximum of 3 slots. These 3 slots are occupied by the 3 most outstanding geniuses of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Upon hearing Emoshan's words, Jian Wushuang was stunned. The surrounding experts and disciples of the Divine Firmament sect were also stunned. The mystic realm opened by the mysterious alliance master of the heaven-cleaving alliance? It only opened once every 10,000 years, and there were only 3 entry slots each time? Just from these 2 points, It could be seen how rare the opportunity in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was. However, the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces actually gave Jian Wushuang such a rare slot? Of course, it was incredible. Even Jian Wushuang himself was a little confused. This was like a pie falling from the sky, directly falling on his head. Elder Emoshan, can I really go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Jian Wushuang asked with some uncertainty. Of course, there is no doubt that this is the order personally passed down by the 3 palace masters, but I don't know if you are willing to go, Emoshan said. Yes, of course. Jian Wushuang nodded without thinking. The reason why he did not want to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces was largely that he did not know the position of the heaven-cleaving alliance. He was worried that the heaven-cleaving alliance was on the same side as the will of heaven's will. However, after meeting Shui Bei, after learning some secrets and knowing that the 3 freedom alliances of the divine beginning realm had nothing to do with the will of heaven's will, he no longer had much fear of the 3 freedom alliances. If Emoshan invited him to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces again, he would consider it carefully instead of rejecting it directly. But now, Emoshan did not invite him to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Instead, he gave him a great opportunity. Such a great opportunity was directly thrown at his head. Of course, he had no reason to reject it. Little guy, take this token. Emoshan handed a token to Jian Wushuang. This is... Jian Wushuang looked at the token in confusion. This is my communication token. It will take 80 years for the heaven-cleaving mystic realm to open again. In 80 years, I will use this token to find you and take you to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, Emoshan said. Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately took the token. After chatting with Mo Shan looked at Bai Ju and said, Bai Ju, I have finished my work. Please don't pay attention to me. Bai Ju's expression changed slightly, then he looked at Jian Wushuang and said, Heavenly Sword Marquis, Iceberg has just invited you to join the Dao Palace, but he hasn't told you clearly about the Dao Palace. The Dao Palace is specially used by the Divine Ancestor Dao sect to cultivate disciples of top geniuses. Countless experts have come out of the palace, and many of them have given birth to principles masters. Some of them have even become overlords in the 3rd heaven. With your talent, if you join the Dao Palace, you will definitely receive the most training. The resources in the Dao Palace alone will benefit you immensely. In addition, if you agree to join the Dao Palace, I can guarantee that you will be allowed to meditate in the Immortal Palace at least 3 times. In addition, I will also invite a principles master who specializes in Sword Dao to be your master and personally guide you. As soon as Bai Ju said this, Iceberg, Bai Xiao, and the others looked over in astonishment. Immortal Palace? Bai Xiao's body trembled slightly. He was one of the genius disciples of the Dao Palace and had joined the Dao Palace for quite some time. He was also familiar with some of the cultivation resources in the Dao Palace. The Immortal Palace, for example, was a place that contained great opportunities in the Dao Palace. It was also a place that many disciples of the Dao Palace yearned for. But at the same time, it was not easy for even disciples of the Dao Palace to enter the Immortal Palace to meditate. For him, he had only entered the Dao Palace once when he first entered. He only got one chance to meditate. As for whether he could get it in the future, he had to compete with other geniuses to get it. But now, before Jian Wushuang joined the Dao Palace, Bai Ju had vouched for him to enter the Immortal Palace at least 3 times. The second condition was to ask a principles master who was good at sword principle to be Jian Wushuang's master. It was known that the principles masters would rarely accept disciples unless the disciple was really outstanding or had a good temper. For example, the principles masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, like the disciples of the Heaven and Earth Palace and the Primitive Palace, were rarely accepted by the principles masters. Most of them could only become the disciples of some powerful top-notch immortal saints. They were lucky enough to become the disciples of an invincible immortal saint. Only the disciples of the Chaos Palace were qualified to become the disciples of the principles masters, and they had to rely on their luck. If the 3 palaces were like this, the Dao Palace was the same. Bai Xiao was also lucky enough to become the disciple of Sword Saint Iceberg. But now, Bai Ju had made a condition. As long as Jian Wushuang agreed to join the Dao Palace, he would immediately be assigned a principal's master who was good at sword principle to guide him. This condition was much better than Bai Xiao and the others. Not only Bai Xiao was surprised, but even Sword Saint Iceberg was also surprised. Because from the process of fighting with Jian Wushuang's talent in sword principle was not that great. Chapter 3073. Two possibilities. Is it because of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Iceberg could not help thinking. Bai Ju looked at Jian Wushuang expectantly, waiting for his answer. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment, but in the end he still apologized. I'm sorry, Master Bai Ju, I have no intention of joining a force for the time being. Don't reject me yet. Bai Ju waved his hand and said, I have a certain friendship with the founder of the Young Divine Sect, which is why I rarely come here. I'll stay here for a while, and Iceberg will stay with me. During this time, if you have any problems in cultivation or sword principle, you can come to me or Iceberg at any time. As for joining the Dao Palace, you can think about it. When Iceberg and I leave, you can give us an answer. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Bai Ju smiled and looked at Sect Master Ceylon. Sect Master Ceylon, Iceberg, and I would like to disturb you for a while. Is that possible? Of course. Sect Master Ceylon was pleasantly surprised. If you and Mr. Iceberg are willing to be our guests, our sect would love to have you. Thank you very much. Bai Ju smiled gratefully. Master Bai Ju, aren't you smart? Emo Shan asked with a strange laugh. Bai Ju glanced at Emo Shan and snorted. Forget it. I've already received the orders from the 3 palace masters. I won't stay any longer. Remember, he'll come back to you in 80 years. Be prepared and don't miss this opportunity. If you miss it, it'll be 10,000 years before the next opening of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, Emo Shan warned. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. Emo Shan soon left, while Bai Ju and Iceberg stayed in the Young Divine Sect. In the room where Jian Wushuang lived, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged alone, but his expression was strange. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm is such an important place. How could the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces give me a place? Jian Wushuang murmured. He still could not figure out why the 3 palace masters gave him a place to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Was it because he was talented and had great potential? However, no matter how great his potential was, he was not a member of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Even if the 3 palace masters wanted to recruit him, they would not give him such a precious place, right? It's not just because I'm talented and have great potential. There must be another reason. But what is the reason? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. After a while, he shook his head and said, Who cares? The heaven-cleaving alliance is not my enemy. Now that such a great opportunity is coming for me, I have no reason to refuse it. As for the Dao Palace, I don't need to pay attention to it for the time being. Jian Wushuang thought to himself, but he suddenly found something interesting. The 3 freedom alliances in the Divine Beginning world, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Space-Time Temple, and the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect, were all related to him. First was the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He was a heaven-rank member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although he did not have many restrictions, he could barely be considered an expert under the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Moreover, he had already agreed to enter the Heaven-Cleaving Mystic Realm. When that time came, his relationship with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would definitely become even closer. He did not have much of a relationship with the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect. However, the key point was that he had previously obtained Shui Bai's mantle. Shui Bai was an expert under the blood ancestor lineage of the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect. He had also promised Shui Bai that when he became powerful, he would rush to the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect, which made him have a certain relationship with the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect. As for the Space-Time Temple, among the 3 freedom alliances, the first one that Jian Wushuang had come into contact with was the Space-Time Temple. When he had obtained the mysterious Golden Stone, he had crossed the Space-Time Temple in the Golden Stone and cultivated the Space-Time Divine Skill. At that time, he had already been a member of the Space-Time Temple. He had a close relationship with the three freedom alliances. Fortunately, the three freedom alliances and the power of the will of heaven were not on the same level, and they were even enemies. For me now, any one of the three freedom alliances is a colossus. I can't resist any expert from the three alliances. I don't need to bother with them. They won't attack me for no reason anyway. I'd better seize the time to improve my strength, Jian Wushuang thought. At all times, Jian Wushuang firmly believed that his absolute strength was the only asset he could rely on. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang suddenly waved his hand, and an ice-cold expert's corpse appeared in front of him. This corpse was the corpse of the principal's master that he had obtained in the Blood North mystic realm. He was going to use this corpse to refine his Emperor's Destiny avatar. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang began to refine his first Emperor's Destiny avatar in the Young Divine Sect. At this moment, in another manner of the Young Divine Sect, Baiju and Iceberg were sitting together. "Sir, I don't understand," Iceberg said. "Although Heavenly Sword Marquis has some talent, it's not worth our Dao Palace spending so much money to invite him. Moreover, he has already declined, but you still want me to stay here with you and give him the opportunity and time to consider. Is it just because the heaven-cleaving three palaces gave him a spot to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? This alone is enough." Baiju smiled. "You are also a member of the Dao Palace. Although you have not reached the level of a principal's master, you are still an invincible immortal saint. You have come into contact with many things. You should know what kind of place the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is. To put it bluntly, anyone who enters the heaven-cleaving mystic realm will be able to obtain a great fortune. With such a great opportunity, how many geniuses of the heaven-cleaving three palaces would have to go through such a fierce battle to obtain the last three spots? And now, these three spots are given to the Heavenly Sword Marquis, which means that the geniuses from the heaven-cleaving three palaces only have 2 spots. How great a sacrifice is this? The three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces were not stupid. Unless there was a special reason, they would never give such an order. What special reason? Iceberg was puzzled. I don't know. Baiju shook his head. But according to my guess, there are only 2 possibilities. The first possibility is that this Heavenly Sword Marquis has unparalleled talent, and is at least much more powerful than the geniuses in the heaven-cleaving three palaces' Primal Chaos Palace. The second possibility is that this Heavenly Sword Marquis has some special background or identity, so the three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces use the quota of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm to express their goodwill to him. Chapter 3074, The Emperor's Life Avatar. The three palace masters are all trying to make friends with him? Iceberg was stunned, but he immediately shook his head. This is impossible. The three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces are all standing at the top of the principal's masters. Not only are they extremely powerful, but they also have a lot of power in the heaven-cleaving alliance. Even when facing the 3 Saint Realm Masters of the Third Heaven, these 3 Palace Masters are only slightly inferior. With such existences, who else in this world can make the 3 Palace Masters take the initiative to make friends with them? Moreover, we have already confirmed the background of this Heavenly Sword Marquis. He has just arrived at the first sky from the endless territories. What kind of background does such a person have? You are right, I think so too. Baiju nodded slightly. Since the second possibility is not realistic, then there is only the first possibility. It is that this Heavenly Sword Marquis is a peerless super genius. He is even more monstrous and dazzling than the geniuses of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces and Primal Chaos Palace. It is just that this Heavenly Sword Marquis talent has not been truly revealed in front of us. We just do not know. When he fought with me previously, did he always hold back? Iceberg frowned. Definitely. Also, he definitely hid more than just a tiny bit. What we saw is most likely just the tip of the iceberg he revealed. Baiju smiled faintly. It's because of this that I said that I would stay with you in the Young Divine Sect for a period of time. I also told him that if he encounters any problems in his cultivation or sword Dao, he can come and look for us at any time. If this heavenly sword marquis is truly a genius, then he will definitely seize every opportunity in his cultivation. Now that I, the true principles master, and you, an invincible immortal saint who specializes in sword Dao, are here, he will definitely not miss this opportunity. He will definitely come and look for us. And during the process of seeking guidance, we will naturally be able to see his actual strength. Is that so? Iceberg understood. Iceberg, you have to work hard during this period. If the little guy comes to you, you must do your best to guide him, Baiju instructed. Yes. Iceberg nodded solemnly. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In a secret room in Jian Wushuang's residence. Success! Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with surprise as he looked at the figure standing calmly in front of him. This figure was the body of the rule master that he had brought out from the mystic realm. However, after being specifically refined, this principles master looked exactly like him. Moreover, his body was exuding an extremely strange aura. Jian Wushuang sat upright and could clearly sense the current situation of the figure in front of him. Emperor's Life Avatar. This is my first Emperor's Life Avatar. Jian Wushuang was very happy. Although the Emperor's Life Avatar did not improve his strength and could not fight for him in a fight, it was used to protect his life. The divine power contained in the body of the Emperor's Life Avatar was on the same level as Jian Wushuang's own divine power, and it was equally vast. One must know that Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely vast, and it could be said to be a divine power C. Other rank 1 true saints would need a lot of divine power to regenerate their divine bodies if their divine bodies collapsed. Under normal circumstances, a rank 1 true saint's divine power could only regenerate his divine body 3 or 4 times at most. However, Jian Wushuang's divine power was vast and boundless, and it could regenerate his divine body again and again. Jian Wushuang conservatively estimated that the divine power in his body could allow him to recombine his divine body at least 100 times. Such vast divine power was already ridiculous, but now Jian Wushuang had an Emperor's Life Avatar, which could bear all of his divine power. This meant that his divine power had doubled again. He could only replenish his divine body hundreds of times, but now he could regenerate it 200 times? What kind of concept was this? For example, if an ordinary rank 1 true saint was corroded by the Cthulhu's venom, he would die without even using half a drop. However, if the Cthulhu's venom was corroded into Jian Wushuang's body, it would take at least 100 drops of Cthulhu's venom to completely corrode his divine power, and that was only if Jian Wushuang was an ordinary first-rank true saint. In fact, Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely pure. In terms of pure purity, it was higher than many third-rank true saints or even peak third-rank true saints. Most importantly, he was a perfect chaotic creature unique to the divine beginning world. He was born with an indestructible and poison-proof physique. The Cthulhu venom and the Devil Star venom were absolutely the nemesis of the immortal saint. But these venoms had no effect on Jian Wushuang. His physique was completely immune to these venoms. With the venom immune and Jian Wushuang's abundant divine power, it was too difficult to kill him. In the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang moved his mind, and the Emperor's Life Avatar in front of him immediately began to shrink. Like an ordinary treasure, it directly merged into his body. The Emperor's Life Avatar has been created, and now, Jian Wushuang flipped his hand and took out the second volume of the Gold-Splitting Secret Manual. The second volume of the Gold-Splitting Secret Manual contained the complete anatomy of the third stage of the space-time principles, which was very helpful to Jian Wushuang. In 80 years, I will go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. According to Elder Mo Shan, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is a great opportunity, or even a land of fortune. It's a rare opportunity, and I can't miss it. Before I enter, I have to find a way to make my strength stronger and reach my current limit. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He wanted to improve himself as soon as possible. When he reached the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, he did not need to spend time on these areas where he could meditate or improve. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang immediately closed his eyes and began to meditate. Of course, he would not blindly meditate. After all, there was a principal's master in the Divine Firmament sect and an immortal saint who had reached the invincible level in sword principle. With such two experts in front of him, it was impossible for Jian Wushuang not to seize the opportunity. Therefore, if he encountered any problems in cultivation or meditation, he would solve them himself. Chapter 3075. Peak rank 4 _ time passed quickly. In a flash, Jian Wushuang had stayed in the young divine sect for 30 years. In the manor, Baiju and Iceberg were sitting together, drinking tea. Iceberg, how many times has Heavenly Sword Marquis looked for you in the past 30 years? Baiju asked. 3 times, Iceberg replied. Only 3 times? Baiju raised his eyebrows. That shouldn't be the case. With your knowledge and cultivation of Sword Dao, it should be more than enough for you to guide Heavenly Sword Marquis. If it were any other genius of Sword Dao with your painstaking guidance, they would definitely come to you frequently. In the past 30 years, it would be normal for them to come to you for guidance 100 times, but he only came to you 3 times? Sir, Heavenly Sword Marquis is very arrogant. In terms of Sword Dao, if it's an ordinary question that he can't understand in a short period of time, he will first try to study it himself and comprehend it in various ways. If he really can't comprehend it in a short period of time, he will come to me for guidance. Iceberg said, Is that so? Baiju nodded slightly. This little fellow doesn't want to rely too much on the guidance of others. That will cause him to become lazy. Only when it's truly important and crucial will he come to ask me. That's right. Furthermore, he came to look for me 3 times. The first time was during the 2nd year that we stayed in the young divine sect. The 2nd time was during the 5th year, and the 3rd time was during the 10th year. However, from the 10th year until now, a full 20 years have passed, and he still hasn't come to look for me, Iceberg said. Then, did you see anything from your 3 pointers? Baiju asked. Well, Iceberg frowned. A little but not much. What do you mean? Baiju looked over. After 3 pointers, I can be sure that the Heavenly Sword Marquis understanding of sword principle and swordsmanship is indeed much better than what he showed us back then. Iceberg's voice was heavy. Take swordsmanship as an example. When we fought before, he only displayed one sword style. That sword style was called the instant of life and death. After this sword style was displayed, he stopped. At that time, he said that this sword style was the only one that he could show off. However, after 3 times of guidance, I discovered that he had created at least 2 other sword styles that were not inferior to instant of life and death. Moreover, those 2 sword styles each had their own characteristics and were also very amazing. Oh! Baiju's expression changed. It seems that my guess is correct. This little guy is indeed hiding his skills and talent. What else? What else did you come up with? Baiju continued to ask. Nothing else. Iceberg shook his head. That Heavenly Sword Marquis is very cautious. He came to me for guidance only because of some problems in swordsmanship and swordsmanship. However, he only gave me guidance 3 times. Moreover, he has been hiding his skills all this time, so I didn't see too much of him. Is that so? Baiju's expression changed slightly. Now he comes to you for advice less and less. If you want to see his real strength through his advice, I'm afraid it's impossible. I have to think of another way. Another way? Iceberg looked over. In a real battle or a fight is enough to see a lot of things. Baiju smiled and then ordered, Iceberg, go and call your disciple over. Yes. Iceberg nodded. In the courtyard where Jian Wushuang lived, Jian Wushuang stood alone, holding the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. He closed his eyes, his breath was steady, and there was no movement at all. At this moment, phew! A breeze came, but Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes. Instantly, 2 electric lights shot out from his eyes. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand moved at the same time. The sword swept across, and a scarlet sword shadow burst out. The sword shadow was like the setting sun, the red light illuminating the world. But the setting sun was obviously incomplete. Wushuang's sword manual, Kenyang. Buzz. The sword light swept across the void in front of him, instantly creating a large area of spatial ripples, which were all red in color. However, suddenly rumble. An endless killing power swept up. A huge space-time storm formed in an instant and began to crazily annihilate everything in the void. In just an instant, everything in the void in front of Jian Wushuang was annihilated without leaving a trace. Jian Wushuang had spent a lot of time comprehending and studying each of the 7 sword techniques in the Wushuang sword manual. Many of the sword techniques were the inspirations he had found from studying countless profound and unfathomable sword techniques in the Bodhi world. For example, there were 9 sword techniques in the 9th heaven of the illusory sword, which seemed to be performed at the same time. Each move was faster and stronger than the last. It was a wonderful sword technique that used speed to suppress the opponent. As for the sword technique of Kanyang, it was the result of Jian Wushuang's perfect combination of his swordsmanship and the comprehension of the space-time principles. He had reached the 3rd stage of the comprehension of space-time principles. At this stage, he had mastered space-time annihilation. The afterimage was a perfect combination of swordsmanship and space-time annihilation, complementing each other. The swordsmanship was powerful, while the space-time annihilation was hidden in the swordsmanship. It could burst out a terrifying power in a short period of time and deal a devastating blow to the opponent. I almost didn't use my own divine power in this sword attack. I only relied on swordsmanship and space-time principles, but it still caused such a big commotion. Jian Wushuang looked at the space in front of him that had been completely annihilated. His eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He did not use his divine power. Once his divine power was fully unleashed, his move could definitely destroy the world. Judging from the power of my swordsmanship, the first move of the setting sun should have reached the peak of the 4th rank by now, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He had stayed in the Young Divine sect for 30 years. During these 30 years, he had been focusing on studying the gold-splitting secret manual. After 30 years of studying it, he had achieved remarkable results. Not only had his comprehension of space-time principles improved greatly, but his swordsmanship had also improved greatly. In addition, his swordsmanship had also improved greatly. There were 7 sword techniques in the Wushuang sword manual, including Shixiang, Star Dream, Kanyang, Emperor's Blood Kill, Life and Death Instant, 9th Heaven of Illusionary Sword, and finally, Blood Azura. Previously, these 7 sword techniques had just reached the level of a 4th level absolute art. However, in the past 30 years, all 7 sword techniques had made breakthroughs. Now, these 7 sword techniques had reached the level of a peak 4th level absolute art, and their power had improved a lot. This meant that his own strength had also improved a lot. In just 30 years, I have made such great progress not only because of the gold-splitting secret manual but also because of the 3 pointers from Sword Saint Iceberg. He has helped me a lot, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. At this moment, Mr. Heavenly Marquis. Chapter 3076, The Genius Feast, Mr. Heavenly Marquis. As the voice rang out, 5 figures flew over from the void in front of Jian Wushuang and landed in front of him. These 5 people were Bai Shao and the other 3 genius disciples from the Dao Palace. The other Jiao Luo was also among them. Brother Heavenly Marquis, Jiao Luo also called out. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, we are going to participate in the Genius Feast of the First Heaven. Do you want to join us? Bai Shao said. Genius Feast? What Genius Feast? Jian Wushuang asked. This Genius Feast is jointly organized by the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sections. It's held once every 5,000 years. Every time it's held, countless experts in the first heaven who have reached the level of a first-level true saint will flock to it. They will compete in the feast and make a name for themselves, Bai Shao said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had experienced too many things in his 2 lives. He had experienced such a genius feast many times, and he had even participated in it several times. Therefore, a genius feast like this one held in the first heaven could not make him excited. You go, I won't go, Jian Wushuang said. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, Bai Shao said immediately, the The genius feast of the first heaven is very large scale. There are countless geniuses coming. Those who get a good ranking in the genius competition will not only receive a lot of rewards, but most importantly, many top forces in the divine beginning world will also pay attention to this genius feast. For example, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect, and even the mysterious Temporal Temple, as well as some sects from the second and third heaven. This is a great opportunity to make a name for yourself in the divine beginning world. Reward. Reward? Famous in the divine beginning world? Jian Wushuang smiled. Reward? A genius feast attended by a first-level true saint could only reward him with some sacred elixirs or powerful holy treasures. He did not lack holy elixirs. He still had 9 universe crystals. Any one of them could be exchanged for a huge amount of sacred elixirs, which was enough for him to use for a long time. As for holy treasures, he did not need them anymore. He had gotten 4 opportunities in Blood North's Heaven Secret region, and Blood North had given him 2 special treasures. One was an ice and fire dragon ruler, and the other was a ruler seal. The former was a domain-type true treasure, and the latter was a treasure that was worth as much as a true treasure. Any of these 2 treasures could be exchanged for countless holy treasures, not to mention the map of mountains and rivers. As for being famous in the divine beginning world, first of all, he did not care about such fame. Secondly, he was targeted by the power of the will of heaven. The 3 masters of the saint realm were looking for him at all times. How could he go to the genius feast and make a name for himself? He was courting death. You guys go. Jian Wushuang waved his hand again. He was really not interested. Mr. Heavenly Marquis. Bai Xiao's expression changed slightly. At this time, Jiu Luo said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, this genius feast is indeed a rare event. There are many geniuses and experts who will attend it. I will also attend it. You just came from the endless territories and have not fully adapted to the environment of the third heaven. If you attend the genius feast at this time, you can really experience the level of geniuses in the third heaven. Even if you don't want to participate, it's good to see it. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Jiu Luo and finally nodded after a long while. You're right. Although I'm not interested in this genius feast, it's good to see it. In that case, let's go. Jian Wushuang also felt that he had been in the first heaven for 30 years, and he could not keep cultivating. Now that he had the opportunity to broaden his knowledge, it was a good choice to go and have a look. Let's set off immediately. Jiu Luo nodded. Bai Xiao and the others were also quite happy. Soon they set off directly. In the first heaven, there was a natural secret realm called the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. The genius feast was in the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. Jian Wushuang and the others had already arrived at the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. However, when they arrived at the Mystic Realm, they saw countless people. So many people. Jian Wushuang looked at the countless people in front of him. This is too many. Jiu Luo exclaimed. The genius banquet in the first heaven is held only once every 5,000 years. It's a large-scale event. For many genius experts, this is a chance to make a name for themselves. Most importantly, this banquet will attract the attention of many sects and forces. In the past, many outstanding geniuses would proudly join those sects and forces. For example, several geniuses from the previous year joined the Heaven-Cleaving 3 Palaces and Tao Palace. Therefore, whether it's to become famous or to join the top forces, many rank 1 true saints from certain forces will come to participate in this feast. Conservatively speaking, there should be at least tens of thousands of rank 1 true saints participating in this genius feast, Bai Xiao said. Tens of thousands of people? Even though Jian Wushuang was shocked, he soon understood. A rank 1 true saint was definitely a top expert in the endless territories. In some small territories, he could even be considered a king, but in the third heaven, he seemed ordinary. There were countless experts in the divine beginning world, so it was not a big deal for tens of thousands of rank 1 true saints to participate in this genius feast. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, since you're already here, why don't you go and register like junior brother Jiu Luo? Bai Xiao said. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment and then nodded. Okay. Bai Xiao was immediately delighted. When he saw that Jian Wushuang was not interested in the genius feast, he thought that Jian Wushuang would not participate in it. However, he still casually mentioned it. He did not expect Jian Wushuang to agree to it now. It's good that he agreed. Only if he agrees to participate in the genius feast will the plan prepared by Master not be in vain. Bai Xiao was pleasantly surprised. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo had already gone to the registration place. The registration place was in front of a towering black tower. The black tower was pitch black, 10 stories high, and exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. At this moment, a large number of people were gathered in front of the tower. Many rank 1 true saints who were going to participate in the genius feast were lining up there. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo followed behind them. The process of the line was very fast. In a moment, it was their turn. Chapter 3077, 10-Star Pagoda. The Genius Feast is a gathering of many top geniuses in the first heaven, but not all first-level true saints can participate in it. Before participating in the Genius Feast, you have to go through a round of assessment, which is the 10-Star Pagoda behind me. There are 10 levels in the 10-Star Pagoda, and each level is more difficult than the last. To participate in the Genius Feast, you have to pass the 5th level at the very least, a person in charge of the registration office said. Jiu Luo, you go ahead first, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Jiu Luo nodded and went straight into the pitch-black tower. Jiu Luo did not stay in the 10-Star Pagoda for long. During this time, the 1st to the 5th level of the tower soon emitted a burst of dazzling light. It meant that Jiu Luo had passed the 5th level, and soon, the 6th floor also burst out with a bright light. The 6th floor? Countless first-rank true saints raised their heads to look at the pitch-black pagoda. The 10-Star Pagoda was extremely difficult. Ordinary first-rank true saints would find it extremely difficult to pass the 5th floor. As for passing the 6th floor, one had to be an extremely powerful first-rank true saint. There were not many experts who had signed up to participate in this genius banquet. At this moment, the 7th level of the Black Tower suddenly emitted a dazzling light. In an instant, the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm burst into an uproar. The 7th level, that person just now actually passed the 7th level. So powerful! It has been 2 months since the start of this genius banquet. Although many people have passed the 5th or 6th level of the 10-Star Pagoda, there are still pitifully few people who have passed the 7th level. In total, there are probably only a few dozen people. If he can pass the 7th level of the 10-Star Pagoda, he will definitely make it to the end of the Genius Feast. A lot of whispers sounded. When Jiu Luo walked out of the 10-Star Pagoda, a lot of people looked at him with respect and envy. To be able to pass the 7th level of the 10-Star Pagoda, he was undoubtedly at the top of this Genius Feast. Jiu Luo, how do you feel? Jian Wushuang glanced at Jiu Luo. I'm fine. The first 6 levels are easy for me, but the 7th level gives me a certain amount of pressure. As for the 8th level, the opponents I met there are much stronger than me. I can't pass it at all, Jiu Luo said directly. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Jiu Luo was a rank 1 true saint, but his battle strength was comparable to a rank 2 true saint. In terms of talent, he was extremely high. It was normal for him to be able to pass the 7th level of the 10-Star Pagoda. Brother Heavenly Marquis, it's your turn. I can pass the 7th level. With your strength, it's easy for you to pass the 8th level. It shouldn't be a problem for you to pass the 9th or even the 10th level, Jiu Luo said. 9th level? 10th level? Jian Wushuang smiled. After a while, he entered the 10-Star Pagoda. Once he entered the 10-Star Pagoda, Jian Wushuang came to an independent space. A towering figure stood in front of him. This was the opponent he was going to face on the 1st level of the 10-Star Pagoda. Challenger, defeat me and you can go to the next level, the towering figure said coldly. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and soon made his move. In the 10-Star Pagoda, Jiu Luo and many other geniuses were waiting quietly. Many people's eyes were fixed on the 10-Star Pagoda. A moment after Jian Wushuang entered the 10-Star Pagoda, the 1st floor burst out with a dazzling light. Then the second floor, the third floor, the fourth floor. All the way to the sixth floor, all of them took only a short time to pass through. Then it was the seventh floor. Jian Wushuang seemed to have stopped for a while at the seventh floor. The light on the seventh floor only lit up after a long time. Although Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo signed up at the same time, they were not assigned to the same chaotic battle. Chapter 3078, Speed and Movement Skills _ In the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm, a series of chaotic battles were going on. In one of the battlefields, a total of 100 rank 1 true saints were standing there, and Jian Wushuang was among them. Bai Xiao and the others were standing in the void near Jian Wushuang's battlefield. Just watch. Before, we couldn't see the scene inside the 10-star pagoda, but now. This is a real battle. Even if there is no life and death battle, we can still see a lot of things, Bai Xiao said. Yes, when Heavenly Sword Marquis fought with you, he defeated you with only one sword attack. This only means that his swordsmanship is very good, but it doesn't mean anything else. After all, you agreed that you would only use the divine power of an ordinary rank 1 true saint to compete in swordsmanship. But now, the genius feast depends entirely on strength. He can use any means. His swordsmanship is stronger than yours, but no one knows the level of his overall combat strength, the red-haired man said. They were all very expectant of Jian Wushuang's strength. They were not the only ones who were curious. It was also a task assigned by the top 100 experts in Iceberg. It's starting! Bai Xiao suddenly shouted in a low voice. On the battlefield, 100 true saints were fighting head-on. A large number of tyrannical auras were mixed together. These true saints had already unleashed all of their strength. The entire battlefield was in chaos. However, Jian Wushuang did not move on this chaotic battlefield. He just stood there indifferently. Even the Blood Mountain sword did not appear in his hand. It was as if the chaotic battle around him had nothing to do with him. Kill! A fierce shout suddenly came from the void beside him. A strong man with golden hair, who looked like a brown bear, stared at Jian Wushuang with fierce eyes and attacked him directly. Boom! A huge iron hammer, with the power of thunder, directly hit Jian Wushuang's body. However, the iron hammer directly passed through Jian Wushuang's body, but it did not touch anything. What? The blonde man was shocked and immediately turned to look around, only to find that Jian Wushuang had already appeared in the void beside him. His expression was still as cold as ever, and he had no intention of attacking. However, even if he did not attack, the blonde man was still frightened. He's too fast. This kid is too fast. If he attacked just now, I wouldn't have time to react. Such a terrifying speed could easily crush me. I'd better find another opponent. The blonde man was also smart. He knew that Jian Wushuang was not to be trifled with, so he immediately went to fight with other first-rank true saints. On the battlefield, everyone was engaged in a fierce battle, but Jian Wushuang was indifferent. Although there were people watching him and occasionally coming to kill him, he easily avoided them and let them. There was no chance to fight him directly. He walked casually on the battlefield, but no one could touch the corner of his clothes. This speed is so fast. It is indeed a little too fast. Not only is it fast, but the most important thing is that its movement is strange. With such speed and movement, there is no need for him to fight on the battlefield. He just needs to wait until the battle is over and there are only 10 people left. Bai Xiao and the others who had been watching Jian Wushuang from the side could not help exclaiming when they saw the scene on the battlefield. They had wanted to see Jian Wushuang's true strength through his fight in the chaotic battle, but Jian Wushuang had never intended to fight. Indeed, more than half of the rank 1 true saints who had lost their divine bodies had been eliminated in the chaotic battle since the beginning, but no one had ever fought with Jian Wushuang. The rank 1 true saints on the battlefield seemed to have seen Jian Wushuang's speed and movement skills, so no one bothered him anymore. Chapter 3079. Duan Yu, this heavenly sword marquis is really well hidden. In the first round of the chaotic battle, he easily passed by relying on his speed and movement techniques. In the second round of the path of reincarnation, he also kept his strength. He only walked 21,000 kilometers before he stopped, the red-haired man said in a low voice. It's fine. Let's wait for the third round. The third round is the most important. In addition, senior brother Xiong Tao has already passed the second round and his ranking is close to his. If nothing goes wrong, the two of them will soon face each other in the third round. Once he faces senior brother Xiong Tao, it will be impossible for him to hold back, Bai Xiao said. When they heard senior brother Xiong Tao's words, the eyes of the red-haired man, the beautiful woman in golden armor, and the black-robed young man lit up. They were all rank 1 true saints from the Dao Palace, but they were only average among the rank 1 true saints in the Dao Palace. And Xiong Tao was widely recognized as the number 1 rank 1 true saint in the Dao Palace. This time, Xiong Tao had received a message from the top 100 talents and specially came to participate in the Genius Feast. Of course, he also hid his identity, so he hoped that he could have a fair fight with Jian Wushuang. He wanted to fight with Jian Wushuang for a legitimate reason. Once Xiong Tao fought with Jian Wushuang, it would be impossible for Jian Wushuang to hold back. Let's see. Bai Xiao and the other 3 were looking forward to it. The third round of the Genius Feast was a one-on-one round battle. The 100 geniuses who reached the third round would draw lots to decide the order of the battle. The first opponent Jian Wushuang drew was called Duan Yu. Duan Yu? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He knew this name because Duan Yu had caused quite a commotion in the second round of the Samsara Road. In the previous round of the Samsara Road, the only person who had made it to 25,000 miles was Duan Yu. He was ranked first in the second round of the Genius Feast. The second round of the Genius Feast depends on the overall strength of one person. Since Duan Yu is ranked first, it's not surprising that he should be the strongest in this Genius Feast. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself, I didn't expect that the opponent I met in the third round would be the strongest in this Genius Feast. My luck is really good. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, but he did not care at all. In the void beside him, Heavenly Sword Marquis' luck is really not good. His first opponent is Duan Yu. The red-haired man laughed loudly. I know Duan Yu. He comes from the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion among the 3 pavilions. He is the number 1 genius of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. Although he is only a rank 1 true saint, it is said that his battle strength is much stronger than ordinary rank 3 true saints. In terms of strength, he is stronger than us, Bai Xiao said. Judging from the fact that he just broke through the reincarnation path, Duan Yu's strength is the strongest in this year's Genius Feast, except for senior brother Xiong Tao. It seems that senior brother Xiong Tao may not have to fight personally. Duan Yu alone can test the strength of Heavenly Sword Marquis, the black-robed young man said with a smile. The 4 of them focused their attention on the battlefield at the front. Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu had already appeared on the battlefield. After seeing Duan Yu, the surrounding spectators looked at Jian Wushuang with pity. This guy is really unlucky. His first opponent is Duan Yu. Duan Yu of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion is undoubtedly the strongest in this year's Genius Feast. Whoever meets him will be a tragedy. Let's see how long he can last in Duan Yu's hands. A large number of discussions were heard throughout the mystic realm without any concealment. Almost no one thought highly of Jian Wushuang. The one who was blown away was Jian Wushuang. He wiped the corner of his clothes and then raised his left hand. I admit defeat. Chapter 3080, Ended under school. What's going on? What happened just now? Heavenly Sword Marquis admitted defeat. Duan Yu won. As expected, the winner is still Duan Yu. The battle just now was so intense. I thought Duan Yu would lose. How is that possible? Duan Yu was the strongest in this Genius Banquet, and Heavenly Sword Marquis was only ranked 76th when he challenged the path of reincarnation. How could he be a match for Duan Yu? However, for him to be able to fight Duan Yu to this extent, he's not bad at all. The surrounding spectators were all discussing. They had just seen the huge thunder hell and heard the sounds of battle, but they did not know what was going on inside. Now that Jian Wushuang had admitted defeat, they naturally thought that Duan Yu had defeated Jian Wushuang head-on. However, what they did not know was that Duan Ye's face was extremely ugly. He stared at Jian Wushuang, who was walking out of the arena, and could not calm down for a long time. At first, he did not take Jian Wushuang seriously, but in the actual fight, Jian Wushuang's strength completely shocked him. Especially in Thunder Hell, when Jian Wushuang used the ninth heaven of illusory sword, his swordsmanship was unbelievably fast. Even if he tried his best, he was completely suppressed. The 9 sword shadows pressed down crazily. He could only withstand 7 sword strikes. He could not withstand the 8th sword at all. However, at this critical moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly stopped and retreated. What happened next was what everyone saw. Jian Wushuang admitted defeat. What happened? Duan Ye's eyes narrowed. Could it be that his swordsmanship was not perfect and he could only perform the 7th strike? No. Duan Yu immediately shook his head. I had a very clear feeling just now. I don't know if he could perform the 9th strike, but he did perform the 8th strike. It was about to hit my divine body, but he took it back at the critical moment. He lost on purpose. On purpose? Duan Yu clenched his fists at the thought of this. He wanted to ask Jian Wushuang to stop, but Jian Wushuang had already left the battlefield. This made him feel extremely aggrieved, but he had nowhere to vent it. This guy. Duan Yu took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and walked down after a long while. In fact, Jian Wushuang did lose on purpose. He lost on purpose because he thought it was meaningless to defeat Duan Yu. Too weak. Duan Yu is already recognized as the number 1 in this genius feast, but his strength is not even comparable to the 3 original palace geniuses I met in the White Bone region. This genius feast is really meaningless, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. In fact, the level of geniuses in this genius feast was not low. After all, this was the largest genius feast in the first heaven. There were many geniuses at the level of a rank 1 true saint, including some real geniuses. However, there was still a gap between geniuses and true geniuses. To put it bluntly, it could not be blamed that these geniuses were too weak. It should be said that Jian Wushuang was too strong and too abnormal. When he was in the Endless Territory, he was able to fight against a rank 4 true saint with the battle strength of a rank 1 true saint. Later, when he went to the Blood North secret area, he obtained a great fortune and great opportunity. His strength soared again. Now, his battle strength had reached an extremely shocking level. Under such circumstances, the other geniuses naturally could not compare to him. In the void not far away, Bai Xiao and the other 3 gathered together. At this moment, their expressions were also somewhat unsightly. This heavenly sword marquis actually lost? The red-haired man asked. He lost on purpose. Although Duan Yu is powerful, he is definitely not his match. He just doesn't want to reveal his strength, so he simply admitted defeat. Bai Xiao's voice was low and deep. This is troublesome. Without them, the genius feast would naturally belong to Duan Yu. The final result was that Duan Yu won the first place in the genius feast and became famous in the 3rd heaven. As for Jiu Luo, his strength was also considered to be at the bottom of the 100 geniuses in the 3rd round. At the beginning of the 3rd round, he met his first opponent and was eliminated. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.